Chapter 173. Zhao Fu turned his gaze to the small groups of goblins at the edge of the historical remnant and started to move. There were only 10 of them, and because they were at the edge of the historical remnant, they weren't very vigilant. Zhao Fu lowered his body and used the buildings to sneak over. The goblins didn't notice Zhao Fu at all, and they were still chatting with each other. Zhao Fu took out the Sky Demon sword and used his full strength from the start. He jumped down from a building and quickly dealt with a few ordinary goblins. With Zhao Fu's current strength, he was unable to take on the remaining goblins, so he could only continue to use the buildings to dodge. The group of goblins furiously chased after Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu used this opportunity to circle around the buildings and deal with the goblin rock throwers. In the end, there was only 1 red goblin and 2 hobgoblins left, and Zhao Fu set up a trap for them, causing them to be bound by 3 green vines. At that moment, Zhao Fu smiled as he walked out from a dark corner. The 3 goblins were struggling on the ground, furiously glaring at Zhao Fu. If it wasn't for the vines blocking their mouths, they would most likely have started cursing at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu walked over and used the Sky Demon sword to cut open one of the vines blocking the goblin's mouth. As soon as the goblin was able to speak, it cursed, "Despicable human! You've killed so many of our goblins. I won't let you off. If you let me go, I'll definitely kill you." When he heard this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh. Those words were simply too stupid. Who would let you go after capturing you? Moreover, they would stupidly challenge you to a duel. Zhao Fu said in the goblin language, "Now that you've been captured by me, you only have 2 choices: submit to me or die." Hearing Zhao Fu speak in the goblin language, the goblin stared for a moment before yelling, "I won't submit to you. Kill us if you dare." You've got guts." Zhao Fu took out a whip and whipped it on the goblin's body. He wanted to use pain to force them to surrender, but what Zhao Fu didn't expect was that the goblins refused to surrender and were quite stubborn. After tens of lashes, the goblins were covered with wounds, but the goblins refused to surrender. The 3 flower spirits could not bear to watch this anymore and said, "Zhao, don't be afraid. Don't abuse them like this, they look so pitiful." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt that this method was ineffective. The goblins in the historical remnant were indeed different from the goblins outside. If they were outside, they would have long since surrendered. Zhao Fu had no choice but to use the life and death contract that he had bought before to force them to submit. The life and death contract was a slave contract. The 3 of them had given their lives to him, and he could do whatever he wanted with them. Even if the 3 of them died, it wouldn't affect Zhao Fu much. Now, Zhao Fu was only forcing them to submit. After using the life and death contract, the paper turned into motes of light and entered the 3 goblins' bodies. Even though they looked quite unwilling, they still submitted in the end. Of course, the goblins' loyalty wasn't very high, but they would at least listen to Zhao Fu's orders. Zhao Fu had the 3 flower spirits release them, and after regaining their freedom, the 3 goblins knelt on the ground and cried out, "Sir." Zhao Fu smiled. He had achieved his goal. He took out some healing medicine and gave them to the goblins. He also took out 2 silver-grade swords and a silver-grade magic staff, and gave them to the goblins. These silver-grade equipment were all from Gu Feng's ring, and there were roughly a few hundred of them. This wasn't too surprising, as most elite soldiers in system main cities already had full sets of silver-grade equipment. As one of the 3 great generals, Gu Feng definitely didn't lack silver-grade equipment. The 3 goblins rubbed the medicine on their bodies as they happily held the equipment, and their loyalty towards Zhao Fu greatly increased. The 3 of them only had some superficial wounds, which weren't too big of a deal. After subduing these 3 goblins, Zhao Fu now had 3 helpers. Even though ordinary goblins and goblin rock throwers were quite strong, Zhao Fu wasn't interested in them. Following this, Zhao Fu allowed them to rest for a while before taking them to another group of 10 people. With the 3 goblins joining in, things became much simpler. At first, Zhao Fu rushed out and killed a few goblins by surprise, while the 3 goblins who had submitted rushed out from the other side. The remaining goblins split up, and the 3 goblins who had submitted to Zhao Fu held back the goblins on the other side, while Zhao Fu quickly dealt with the goblins on the other side. In the end, Zhao Fu's group surrounded the remaining blue goblin and 2 hobgoblins. While Zhao Fu wasn't paying attention, 3 green vines shot out from the ground and wrapped around the 3 goblins, forcing them to submit. However, this time, the 3 goblins' aggro shifted from Zhao Fu to the 3 goblins who had submitted, and they cursed at Zhao Fu for being traitors. Following this, Zhao Fu used his contract to force them to submit, and he continued to look for other weaker group. After repeating this method, Zhao Fu finally expanded his group to 15 people. 2 of them were blue goblins, 3 were red goblins, and 15 were hobgoblins. With this number of soldiers, Zhao Fu wasn't afraid at all. After luring out a group of 20 goblins, he directly attacked without any trick. The blue and red goblins threw fireballs and ice balls at the enemy goblin rock throwers and blue and red goblins, while the hobgoblins rushed over with their weapons. Zhao Fu also held the Sky Demon's sword and used the Sky Demon's power to send countless traces of Sky Demon Qi into his body, and Zhao Fu rushed into the fray. 3 goblins swung their wooden clubs at Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu slashed out with his sword, sending their wooden clubs flying. Zhao Fu then slashed out with his sword, sending out a black sword light that hit the 3 goblins' chests. A terrifying gash appeared on their chests, and blood flowed out as they fell to the ground and died. Bang! A goblin rock thrower threw a rock at Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu dodged to the side before rushing at the goblin rock thrower and starting to fight. The battle concluded very quickly, and it wasn't just because of Zhao Fu. It was because of the other 15 goblins. There were only 1 blue goblin, 1 red goblin, and 4 hobgoblins. The rest were all normal goblins and goblin rock throwers. On the other hand, Zhao Fu's side was filled with powerful goblins, and there wasn't a single one of them. As such, Zhao Fu was able to easily deal with this group of goblins. Chapter 174. 3 days later, Zhao Fu and his team cleared out almost all of the goblins, and Zhao Fu's team now had 32 goblins. The battles over the past few days had been quite intense, and Zhao Fu's subordinates had been injured or killed, so Zhao Fu had expanded his team. Now there were 5 blue goblins, 7 red goblins, and 20 hobgoblins. This was quite a large number, and Zhao Fu led his team towards the inner region of the historical remnant. Zhao Fu obtained some information from the goblins that he had subdued. It turned out that the historical remnant was in the outer region, and the inner region was occupied by a group of minotaurs. The minotaurs were a type of mutated minotaurs, and they were incredibly ferocious. Because the goblins were afraid of the minotaurs, they could only stay outside the historical remnant and didn't dare to enter. From what the goblins said, Zhao Fu found out that the inner region of the historical remnant was even more dangerous. At the same time, he understood that the minotaurs were incredibly powerful, but Zhao Fu still wanted to go and take a look. Riches could only be obtained with danger, so he had to take risk. There were goblins leading the way, and Zhao Fu was at the back. After passing through the densely packed buildings, Zhao Fu arrived in front of a dilapidated castle. The castle was quite big and majestic, and it was a Western Gothic-style building. However, it was incredibly dilapidated, and the walls and pillars had all collapsed. There were weeds everywhere, and it looked completely barren. Apart from this, Zhao Fu also found 4 gray stone steels that were about 1 meter tall. They seemed to be profession-changed stone steels. Zhao Fu walked over and saw that they were indeed profession-changed stone steels. The 4 stone steels corresponded to the 4 military professions in the historical remnant. Goblin blunt arms, grade E+ military description. A goblin warrior that wields a club, effect, receives the skill blunt weapon strike. The first soldier type surprised Zhao Fu. It was an E+ soldier type, which was slightly higher than the Qin soldier type, because the Qin soldier was only an E-rank soldier. However, Zhao Fu's Qin soldier didn't have a limit on the number of people that he could have, and he could have as many as he wanted. Zhao Fu could only have 1,000 goblins, but because Zhao Fu had the buff stats, he could have 2,000 or so goblins. At the same time, Zhao Fu also felt that the level of Qin's army was still too low. It could not handle the intense battles in the future, but Zhao Fu did not know how to increase the level of this army. He turned his attention to the next goblin unit. Rock Thrower Goblin, Grade E Military Description: Warriors that can throw terrifying rocks. Effects: receives the skill Rock Throwing after changing professions. Hobgoblin Goblin, Grade D Military Description: Goblin warriors that wield sharp swords. Effects: receives the skill Swordsmanship Essentials. Green Crimson Goblin, Grade D+ Military Description: a goblin mage that can cast powerful magic. Effect: receives skill Ice Flame after changing professions. The remaining 3 professions also had a limit on the number of goblin rock thrower professions. The number of hobgoblins was 500, the number of hobgoblins was 200, and the number of green-red goblins was 100. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and found that the stone steels could be moved. He felt quite delighted and immediately put the 4 stone steels into his king's ring. With these 4 profession change stone steels, the goblin race's profession was now complete. Following this, Zhao Fu looked at the castle and had the goblins wait outside while he went in to take a look. With the assassin profession, he wasn't afraid, but if he brought so many people in, they would be discovered sooner or later. The goblins obeyed and waited outside. They were quite afraid of the minotaurs within the castle. Zhao Fu hid his aura and snuck into the castle. At first, Zhao Fu entered the castle and found that everything was normal. He didn't discover anything, and his surroundings were quite peaceful. However, as Zhao Fu slowly entered, he found that the noises ahead were getting louder. There were loud snoring sounds from sleeping, smashing things, and furious roars. All of the noises had something in common, which was that they sounded like cows. Zhao Fu slowly climbed up a relatively tall building and looked ahead. He found that there were 50 or so minotaurs within the ruins. These minotaurs looked just like minotaurs. They had the bodies of humans and the heads of cows. Their bodies were covered with muscles, and there was a hide around their waist. However, these minotaurs were quite big, and they were about 4 meters tall when they stood up. They were also easily angered, and when they went berserk, their eyes would become blood red. Apart from these ordinary minotaurs, Zhao Fu also found a minotaur chief in front of an exquisitely carved stone gate. This minotaur chief was 6 meters tall, and he had a pair of black, shiny, long and sharp horns. His body was incredibly muscular, and he gave off an incredibly oppressive aura. After looking around, Zhao Fu went back and started to think about how to deal with the minotaurs. The minotaurs were incredibly powerful, and if they were also easily angered, they would be even more dangerous because their strength would increase by many times when they were enraged. Zhao Fu looked at the minotaurs and saw that the minotaurs were incredibly powerful. This type of minotaurs was quite terrifying, so it was best not to fight them head-on. However, tricks could be used, and the effects would be quite good. Zhao Fu thought of a method. He found a large tree that was 10 or so meters tall and prepared a thick chain that was 2 fingers thick. He also found a large boulder. Whether this method would work or not would depend on their teamwork. Moreover, because the minotaurs had a chief, the ordinary minotaurs would obey its orders. As such, he had to be more careful. If the chief minotaur noticed him, everything would fail. After all, with his current strength, Zhao Fu might not be able to defeat the chief minotaur. Following this, Zhao Fu started to carry out his plan. Zhao Fu once again went to the inner part of the castle and stared at a minotaur at the outermost area. He hid by the side and threw a boulder at it before pushing a goblin out to provoke the minotaur. After being pushed out by Zhao Fu, the goblin looked quite wronged because it was very afraid of the minotaurs. However, it was unable to resist Zhao Fu's power, and with Zhao Fu's promise to protect its life, it reluctantly complied. Facing the goblin outside the historical remnant, the minotaurs were not very wary. If it was Zhao Fu who attracted the goblin's aggro, he would most likely attract a few minotaurs. Moreover, they were very wary. Very quickly, after being provoked by the goblin many times, the minotaurs became infuriated. Their eyes became bloodshot, and they gasped for breath as they charged over. Chapter 175. The infuriated minotaur gave off a terrifying and ferocious aura as it furiously rushed over, knocking down a few walls and causing dust to fly everywhere. The minotaur's eyes became blood-red as it searched for that despicable figure in the dust. However, after looking around, that despicable figure had disappeared. The minotaur felt incredibly furious, and just as it was about to vent its anger, that figure once again appeared in the distance, provoking it. The minotaur roared, vowing to tear that goblin to shreds, and it charged over again. However, after charging over, that figure once again disappeared. After a while, it reappeared in the distance, and if it was someone with a clear mind, they would have sensed that something was off. However, the minotaur had completely lost its mind and didn't think about such a thing. Right now, it just wanted to tear that goblin to shreds, and the more it chased, the angrier it became. That despicable goblin was able to escape every time. Bang! The minotaur smashed a wall into smithereens with a single punch, causing bricks to fly everywhere, creating a terrifying sound. In the distance, the goblin that Zhao Fu had pushed out paled in fright. If he had been hit by that punch, he would have been turned into a pile of meat paste. His body trembled as he turned to Zhao Fu and said, "Sir, you can protect me. Right now, my life is in your hands." All right, don't worry." Zhao Fu hid by the side and looked at the completely enraged minotaur as he smiled and said. This smile made the goblin lose all confidence. However, with his strength, he was unable to escape from the minotaur's pursuit, so he could only rely on Zhao Fu. As such, he pointed at the minotaur and cursed, "You bastard! Minotaur pig! Shame of the minotaurs! Roar!" The minotaur furiously charged at the goblin, and Zhao Fu immediately picked up the goblin and used his agility techniques to quickly weave through the buildings. He was like a black blur, and after a few leaps, he appeared in the distance. A few times in a row. In the end, the minotaur chased the goblin to a street, and seeing that the despicable goblin had finally stopped running, the fury in his heart was about to explode. The minotaur's eyes became even more bloodshot, and he breathed out large mouthfuls of white smoke as he once again rushed at the goblin. From how ferocious he looked, it seemed like he could stomp the goblin into meat paste. But suddenly, it stepped on an inconspicuous pile of hay. Immediately, it was startled and felt that its legs were bound by something. But in the next second there was the sound of a boulder falling to the ground, and its whole body was hung upside down. Zhao Fu's trap was very simple. He would use the goblin to lure the minotaur out, then tie one end of the chain to a large rock, and hang it on a tree. When the minotaur stepped on the noose and pushed the rock down, the minotaur would be suspended in mid-air. Now that the minotaur was hung upside down, no matter how much strength it had, it couldn't use it at all. It could only swing its fists around, and if it had a calm mind, it would have tried to break the chain. However, the minotaur only wanted to destroy it with brute force. Zhao Fu had specifically found these chains, so how could he allow it to break free? Zhao Fu smiled as he walked out from the side. The minotaur had a crazed look on its face, and it had completely lost its mind. It continuously roared, wanting to tear apart everyone in front of it. The minotaur was incredibly powerful, and the wind from its fists could easily injure people. Zhao Fu walked over and released a faint barrier of light, blocking the wind from the fist. He then took out a contract and set up this trap. Zhao Fu's intention wasn't to kill the Minotaur but to subdue it. After all, with a few Minotaurs, it would be much easier to deal with the Minotaurs within the castle. However, after Zhao Fu used the contract turned into motes of light and flew towards the Minotaur. However, the motes of light were unable to enter the Minotaur's body, and they were instead repelled by a formless energy. After the motes of light disappeared, Zhao Fu frowned and tried to use another contract, but it still failed. This caused Zhao Fu to sigh. This contract was most likely ineffective against Minotaurs. Since he couldn't subdue it, he could only kill it. Seeing how crazed the Minotaur was, he couldn't allow it to attract other Minotaurs. Zhao Fu slowly drew the Sky Demon's sword at his waist and sent his king's power into it, causing the sword to give off a sharp, black sword light. Zhao Fu swung it forwards, and a sword light flashed as the Minotaur's head fell from its neck. It was as if he had opened a bottle of blood, and blood flowed out of its neck. The Sky Demon happily devoured the Minotaur's fleshly essence, and it cried out in delight. Such a powerful fleshly essence would definitely be a great tonic. After killing the Minotaur, it dropped an orb of green light. This orb of light was as big as a fist and gave off an ancient aura. However, Zhao Fu could sense the power that it gave off. Zhao Fu picked it up and looked at it. Ancient power. A type of pure physical power that can be fused into one's own body or equipment. Ancient power? After looking at the description, Zhao Fu looked down at the Sky Demon and asked, "Do you want this power?" The Sky Demon, who had been enjoying the feeling of devouring the essence blood, hurriedly shook its head and refused, saying, "I don't want that kind of physical power." Hearing this, Zhao Fu thought about it. Since the Sky Demon didn't want it, Zhao Fu decided to use it himself. He wanted to see what effects this ancient power had, because he felt that it was quite rare. Following this, Zhao Fu pressed the orb of green light against his chest. The orb of green light fused into his body and turned into a ray of green light that spread out. Immediately, Zhao Fu felt some kind of power enter his body, causing his body to tremble. Following this, his heart started to vigorously beat, and his body started to heat up. However, this only lasted for a short while before it stopped. This was because the king's power within Zhao Fu's body had devoured a portion of this ancient power. It seemed that this ancient power was inferior to his king's power, or else it wouldn't have been devoured so easily. Despite this, the ancient power's effects were still evident. Zhao Fu's constitution and strength stats both increased by a lot, and when Zhao Fu clenched his fists, he could feel the power within his body. Moreover, after obtaining the ancient power, Zhao Fu's body, which was originally quite thin, now had a trace of muscles on it, making Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. After sensing the ancient power's power, Zhao Fu looked up at the Minotaur's corpse. Since he couldn't subdue the Minotaur, he could only kill it. Right now, Zhao Fu's goal was to subdue the Minotaur, so he couldn't kill it. Chapter 176. Following this, Zhao Fu and the 32 goblins started to dig a hole. Indeed, they were digging a hole. Zhao Fu's sword gave off a sword light as he easily stabbed it into the ground 1 meter deep. He twisted the sword, causing the ground within 1 meter of him to collapse. The digging speed was quite fast, as even hobgoblins could easily draw out sword light. What's more, Zhao Fu had 20 hobgoblins with him, and all of them had stage 1 cultivation. After working for half a day, Zhao Fu had also joined in. They had dug a 6-meter wide, 20-meter deep hole, and after digging such a large hole, not only did the goblins become exhausted, but Zhao Fu was also exhausted. Beads of sweat rolled down his body as he sat to the side and panted. The 3 flower spirits thoughtfully took out small handkerchiefs and helped Zhao Fu wipe his sweat. After a while, Zhao Fu stabbed 20 or so sharp silver-grade spears into the bottom of the hole before returning to the surface and covering the hole with hay. Finally, the trap was complete. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite satisfied. Now, it was time to lure more Minotaurs, and Zhao Fu looked at the goblin that had done quite well. Facing Zhao Fu's evil gaze, this goblin's body trembled, and it wanted to shrink back into the group of goblins. It didn't want to do something as dangerous as luring minotaurs anymore, and it had been scared to the point that its heart had almost jumped out of its chest. However, even though it didn't want to, it was still pulled out of the group by Zhao Fu. The goblin looked incredibly wronged and wanted to cry. However, after Zhao Fu tossed it a bottle of little spirit pills, the goblin's expression immediately changed, and it looked as if it was determined to complete the quest. After coming to the castle, Zhao Fu looked at a minotaur that was snoring loudly on the ground. Zhao Fu picked up a pebble and threw it at the minotaur. The pebble flew out and hit the minotaur's head. However, the ox-headed monster did not have much of a reaction. It merely scratched its head and continued to sleep. Zhao Fu felt quite speechless, and he picked up a fist-sized rock and threw it. The rock tore through the air and drew an arc in the air before hitting the minotaur's head. Roar! The stone smashed into the minotaur's head, causing a large bump to appear on the minotaur's head. The sleeping minotaur jumped up from the ground and went into a berserk state. Its blood-red eyes looked around, wondering which bastard had disturbed its sleep. This time, there was no need for Zhao Fu to say anything. The hobgoblin stepped out and cursed, "Big ox head! You stupid cow, come and catch me!" Roar! The minotaur roared angrily and stomped his feet, causing the ground to crack. His entire body shot forward like a cannonball. This ferocious attack caused the goblin's face to pale, and it suddenly felt a deathly pressure. Its body froze and cold sweat appeared on its forehead. Just as the minotaur was about to slam into it, a hand grabbed it and it disappeared. Bang! The minotaur smashed into the place where the goblin had been standing, creating a large crater. The minotaur shook off the sand and stones on its body, and its blood-red eyes looked at the hateful figure in the distance. It then looked at the goblin in the distance and continued to chase after it. A few times later, the minotaur saw that the damned goblin was provoking it again, and it was about to explode in anger. It furiously roared and charged over this time. It was going to tear that goblin to shreds. Bang! The minotaur was incredibly fast, and just as it was about to reach the goblin, the minotaur's foot missed, and its body fell to the ground. The trap was a success. Zhao Fu smiled as he walked over to the side of the trap. He looked down and saw that the minotaur's body had been pierced by 10 or so spears, and blood flowed down the spears. The minotaur was still alive, and it waved its arms as it tried to stand up. Seeing this, Zhao Fu quickly jumped down and ended the minotaur's life, not allowing it to continue struggling. Zhao Fu picked up the ancient power that the minotaur had dropped, and its flesh and essence were devoured by the sky demon. Then, Zhao Fu brought up the minotaur's corpse, which had become a dried-up corpse. This time's trapping and hunting had been completed perfectly. Now, Zhao Fu had to lure the minotaurs over and have them fall into the trap. Zhao Fu spent a few days luring the 30 or so minotaurs over and dealing with them. During this period of time, nothing unexpected happened. At the same time, Zhao Fu obtained 30 or so ancient powers. These ancient powers could only be used once, and they were useless after being used multiple times. This messed up Zhao Fu's plans. After using the ancient power last time, Zhao Fu had found that it was quite beneficial to his internal injuries. A small portion of the azure energy sealing Zhao Fu had disappeared, and Zhao Fu had recovered some of his strength. Zhao Fu had thought that using the ancient power would be able to completely heal his injuries and restore his previous strength, but that was not possible. As such, Zhao Fu could only put away the 30 or so ancient powers. However, Zhao Fu rewarded the goblin that Zhao Fu had often used to lure the minotaurs. After using the ancient power, the goblin went through massive changes. The goblin's 1.2 tall body grew to 1.5 meters tall, and its body became muscular. It was like a poor man had instantly become a muscular man, and the aura that it gave off was many times more powerful than before, making the other goblins feel quite envious. The goblin's transformation was because its bloodline was not as high-grade as the ancient power, which was why it had changed so much. Zhao Fu had a level 9 royal bloodline, so his transformation was very small. After Zhao Fu killed the 30 or so minotaurs, the minotaur chief sensed that something was wrong, and Zhao Fu did not dare to do anything. If Zhao Fu did anything, such as luring the minotaurs, it was possible that all of the minotaurs would be lured over, including the minotaur chief. If it was an ordinary minotaur, Zhao Fu would have the confidence to deal with it. However, Zhao Fu did not have the confidence to deal with the minotaur chief because the dangerous aura it gave off was simply too powerful. Right now, they could only remain in a stalemate. Zhao Fu did not dare to act rashly, and the minotaurs discovered what their true enemy was. Chapter 177. Right now, the only thing they could do was to continuously dig. Following this, Zhao Fu took the 32 goblins and started to dig tunnels. Elsewhere, Shi Jian, who had been unconscious and heavily injured, had finally woken up. His injuries were definitely more severe than Zhao Fu's, which was why he had only woken up now. Lying on the hospital bed, Shi Jian seemed to have aged 10 or so years, and there were strands of white hair on his head. Lu Xing and Yu Limping were waiting by his side. Yu Limping's injuries had already healed, but Lu Xing's arms had been cut off by Zhao Fu. Although his arms had grown back, his cultivation had greatly decreased. When they saw Shi Jian slowly open his eyes, they warmly called out, "City Lord." Shi Jian weakly nodded and tried to sit up. Lu Xing and Yu Limping hurriedly went up to help, and they helped Shi Jian sit up. Lu Xing and Yu Limping then started to tell Shi Jian about the things that had happened in the past few days, including the Qian family, the effects of the terrifying battle on Heavenstone City, and Shi Wen. After hearing about these things, Shi Jian sighed and said, "Call Wen over. I have something to talk to him about." Following this, Shi Wen, who had been locked up in his room for a few days, heard his father call for him and immediately ran over with a look of joy on his face. Seeing his father, who had aged a lot and was weakly lying on the bed, Shi Wen felt a lump in his throat. Adding on the grievances he had suffered over the past few days, he ran over and hugged Shi Jian as he cried. A while later, Shi Jian looked at the crying Shi Wen and patted him on the shoulder as he said weakly, "Have you been well these past few days?" Shi Wen looked up at his father and wiped away his tears as he said guiltily, "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, it's all my fault that you're so badly injured." Over the past few days, Shi Wen had heard about what had happened, and he had never thought that something that he had thought was a small matter would lead to such a terrifying outcome. When Shi Jian saw that his son had finally repented, he felt quite happy and gratified. He suddenly felt that the injuries he had suffered had been worth it. Now you know how terrifying and cruel this world is. Even though your father was chosen by the sovereign and appointed as a city lord, he's not invincible. In such a short period of time, those mutants have already produced such a powerful expert. But in the future, such experts will be as numerous as hair. The cruelty of the future may not be something you can imagine now. It will be an era filled with endless darkness and slaughter. I can only protect you for a while. I can't protect you forever. Perhaps one day you will be killed by a peerless expert. If you continue to be muddle-headed and only care about playing and enjoying yourself, you will only harm yourself. In the Dark Ages, even if you were lucky enough to survive, you would become a servant and live a life worse than pigs and dogs. Even death would become an extravagant hope. Father, will the future really be so terrifying? Shi Wen asked in disbelief when he heard how serious his father was. Shi Jian nodded and bitterly smiled as he said, "Everything in front of you is just a facade. You'll understand when the time comes, but by then, the world will have become hell on earth." After hearing his father's words, Shi Wen earnestly nodded. Seeing this, Shi Jian smiled and said, "I'll leave the Qian family's matter to you then." By now, Shi Wen's heart had somewhat changed. Before, he had thought that with his father around, he could think of nothing and fear nothing. Now that this had happened, he couldn't help but change his way of thinking. In this world where the weak were prey to the strong, he didn't want to live a life of being a servant. Shi Jian's heavy injuries had given him a big wake-up call. Thinking about the Qian family, Shi Wen's expression became vicious. It was all their fault. Only now did Shi Wen display the viciousness of a high-ranking person, and he raised his head as he said to Shi Jian, "Father, I'll go take care of it right now. I'll take care of it right now and make sure you'll be satisfied." After saying this, Shi Wen drew a sharp sword and left. He went to a room where there were a few beautiful women. These were the women that the Qian family had given him for him to play with. Even though players could leave the Heaven Awakened world, they couldn't leave if they were in battle or imprisoned. They could only leave through death. Once they died, everything would be gone. As such, the Qian family's people were quite reluctant to let them go, so they had kept them imprisoned. They still had a trace of hope that the hedonistic young master, Shi Wen, would save them. However, they had greatly underestimated Shi Wen's viciousness. As soon as they entered the room, the Qian family's women began to flirt, wanting to curry favor with Shi Wen so that he would spare them. Pooh! Shi Wen was already quite tired of these women, and he stabbed one of them in the heart with his sword. Seeing this, the other women screamed and immediately knelt on the ground, begging Shi Wen for mercy. However, Shi Wen was unmoved and killed them with a few strikes. Following this, Shi Wen personally led a group of soldiers to the Qian family's residence. When the Qian family's leader saw Shi Wen, he was delighted. If anyone else had brought soldiers, the Qian family would have been in danger. However, Shi Wen had come, and the situation was different. He felt that Shi Wen would be easy to deal with, and after promising him a few more beauties and rare items, the Qian family's crisis would be resolved. "Young Master Shi, please save the Qian family this time. We were also framed, and we didn't know about this at all." The Qian family's leader forcefully pushed away all responsibility and acted pitifully as he walked up to Shi Wen. The other Qian family's people also cried and said that they were innocent and that they had been framed. Facing the Qian family's people, Shi Wen savagely laughed, causing the Qian family's leader to feel quite surprised. In the next second, a sword light flashed, and the Qian family's leader's head rolled off. "Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them all," Shi Wen ordered, and the soldiers behind him started to slaughter the Qian family's people. At that moment, Shi Wen's gaze swept over the Qian family's leader's wife, and a lewd smile appeared on his face as he dragged her into a room. Following this, a few pitiful cries sounded out as Shi Wen walked out of the room with disheveled clothes and a satisfied smile on his face, leaving behind a naked female corpse. From now on, the tyrant Qian family of Heavenstone City had been completely uprooted. This news caused many people in Heavenstone City to heave a sigh of relief, and they felt incredibly happy. This scourge had finally been dealt with. After watching his son, Shi Wen, leave, Shi Jian's expression became serious as he said, "Now that Heavenstone City has formed an enmity with that person, he'll come back sooner or later. When that time comes, Heavenstone City will be destroyed, so we need to do something." Chapter 178. Hearing this, Lu Xing and the other person's expressions became serious, and they lowered their heads and cupped their fists as they said, "Please, what are the city lord's instructions?" Shi Jian thought for a moment before replying, "Let's go and find those three. If they can help, Heavenstone City won't be in such danger." Following this, Lu Xing and the other person chatted with Shi Jian for a while before turning and leaving. Of course, those three people were the city lords of the other three main cities. Back at Zhao Fu's side, Zhao Fu had spent nearly 10 days working day and night, and he and the 32 goblins had dug a hole that was 100 meters deep and 30 meters wide. After digging this hole, Zhao Fu stabbed 50 or so silver-grade spears into the bottom of the hole. This was all of Zhao Fu's spears, and it definitely wouldn't be enough. As such, Zhao Fu found an iron tree and chopped it into 100 or so wooden spears, which he stabbed into the bottom of the hole. Following this, Zhao Fu prepared some other things, and the super-large trap was finally completed. Perhaps many people had already guessed Zhao Fu's goal. That's right. Zhao Fu wants to dig this super-large hole and trap all of the minotaurs. The goblins wouldn't be able to lure the minotaurs, so Zhao Fu had to do it himself. The other goblins would lie in ambush here for now, waiting for Zhao Fu to lure the minotaurs over before activating the trap. In order to make sure that nothing unexpected would happen, Zhao Fu carefully checked everything, and after making sure that he hadn't missed anything, he began his plan. Zhao Fu hid his aura and snuck into the castle. He found a high place where there was a slope, and Zhao Fu stood there and looked at the Minotaur chief lying in front of the gates. At that moment, Zhao Fu took out the Great Spirit Rock bow and took out an arrow. He held the bow with one hand and held the arrow with the other, and he drew the bow with all of his strength. He sent his king's power into the arrow and aimed it at the Minotaur chief. Swish! Zhao Fu shot out an arrow, which turned into a black and violet ray of light that gave off a sharp and ferocious aura. It flashed through the air and drew an arc in the air, arriving in front of the Minotaur chief. Suddenly, the Minotaur chief, who was lying in front of the gate, jumped up and clenched his fist. The muscles all over his body bulged and he punched. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out, as if the air itself had exploded. The Minotaur monster punched out, and a massive force of air knocked away the incoming arrow. The next second, the Minotaur chief's eyes became bloodshot from anger as he looked at the mysterious black-cloaked figure holding a large bow and holding a black cloak. The Minotaur chief's eyes became bloodshot from rage as he looked at the mysterious figure holding a large bow and wearing a black cloak. Bang! The Minotaur chief casually grabbed a boulder that was as big as a millstone and threw it. The boulder was easily thrown out, and it seemed as if it was just a small pebble. However, the boulder whistled through the air as it smashed towards Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu was given a big fright, and he jumped down from the side. The boulder smashed into the place where Zhao Fu was standing, creating a 5-meter-wide crater. Seeing that he had missed Zhao Fu, the Minotaur chief kicked off the ground, and his body turned into a blur as he rushed towards where Zhao Fu was. The other Minotaurs also entered a berserk state, and their eyes became bloodshot as they followed the Minotaur chief in that direction. Just as Zhao Fu jumped down from the high ground, he felt a sense of danger approaching. He turned around and found that the Minotaur chief was already within 20 meters of him. So fast! Zhao Fu couldn't help but cry out and quickly run towards the trap. Zhao Fu's speed was incredibly fast, and he turned into a black blur as he leapt through the buildings. In just a few flashes, he had arrived far away. However, the Minotaur chief wasn't slow either, and he was even more ferocious. He smashed a path through the buildings, and he even pulled closer to Zhao Fu. Seeing this, if he didn't do anything, the Minotaur chief would definitely catch up to him. As such, Zhao Fu could only take out his rarely used throwing knives. Swish! 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 Zhao Fu threw out flying sabers, which gave off cold lights as they tore through the air towards the Minotaur chief. However, the Minotaur chief exploded out with a green aura and completely ignored these flying sabers. When the flying sabers hit his body, it was as if they had hit steel, and they gave off clanging sounds before being repelled. This made Zhao Fu feel quite surprised, and the Minotaur chief pulled closer to Zhao Fu. As such, Zhao Fu could only give up on throwing knives and use hell fireballs. Zhao Fu rarely used these fireballs, but with the Sky Demon's power, they were even more powerful. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and blood-red flames gathered in his palm, forming a basketball-sized blood-red fireball. As soon as the hell fireball appeared, Zhao Fu threw it at the Minotaur chief. Facing the incoming fireball, the Minotaur chief roared and once again clenched his fist. This time, his fist gave off an azure light as a terrifying power gathered in his fist. Boom! The Minotaur chief punched out again, and a ferocious fist energy shot out, causing the air to explode. This formless fist energy collided with the hell fireball that Zhao Fu had thrown, causing it to explode into countless sparks and disappear. What was even more terrifying was that the fist energy did not disappear, and it continued to fly towards Zhao Fu. This caused Zhao Fu to feel quite startled, and he suddenly twisted in mid-air, dodging the fist energy. However, the fist energy hit the wall, causing the wall to cave in, and a large fist-shaped mark appeared. By now, the Minotaur chief and Zhao Fu were much closer, and they were now within 10 meters of each other. The Minotaur chief once again swung his fist, but Zhao Fu could not do anything. Suddenly, 3 green vines drilled out from the ground and wrapped around the Minotaur chief's feet. The Minotaur chief quickly broke free, but during this time, the distance between Zhao Fu and the Minotaur chief was once again reduced to 20 meters. Zhao Fu smiled and looked down at the 3 flower spirits hidden within his clothes. It's all thanks to them. Now that the vines were restricting the Minotaur chief, he could control his speed, and the distance between them increased. Zhao Fu would be able to maintain a safe distance from the Minotaur chief, making it less dangerous. Soon, Zhao Fu lured the Minotaurs to the trap and stood on the other side of the trap. He looked at the Minotaurs charging at him and felt quite nervous, not knowing if the trap would work or not. In order to trap all of them at once, normal traps would not work. After all, if there were too many Minotaurs, the people at the front would fall and the people at the back would stop, so it would be impossible to catch them all at once. As such, Zhao Fu's trap was definitely different. This trap was covered with hay, and there was a layer of wooden planks under the hay. These wooden planks were sturdier and could withstand the Minotaur's weight. Chapter 179. Zhao Fu stood on the other side of the trap and looked at the Minotaur chief and the 20 or so ordinary Minotaurs behind it. Zhao Fu's heart was in his throat. The Minotaur chief was quite fast, and it was possible that it would reach Zhao Fu before the Minotaurs behind it would fall into the trap. He had to restrict the Minotaur chief's speed. Zhao Fu took out his great spirit rock bow and quickly shot arrows. The arrows turned into rays of violet light as they flew towards the Minotaur chief. Facing so many arrows, the Minotaur chief punched out with his fist. Bang! 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 He punched out one arrow after another, sending the arrows flying. Zhao Fu stood where he was and continued to shoot arrows. The Minotaur chief slowly drew closer and closer, and soon, there were only 5 meters between the two of them. Looking at the despicable enemy in front of him, the Minotaur chief clenched his fists and prepared to punch that person into meat paste. However, at this moment, the Minotaur chief suddenly noticed that the mysterious person's face under the hood was curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a smile. This caused the Minotaur chief to be slightly taken aback. Clang! The hidden goblins grasped this opportunity and activated the trap. Countless wooden planks fell apart, and the Minotaurs standing on them all fell down. At the same time, the Minotaur chief's body lost its balance and started to fall. However, at that moment, a cold light flashed in the Minotaur chief's eyes, and he punched out with all his might. Bang! A formless fist energy shot out, and Zhao Fu was given a big fright. He hurriedly dodged to the side, and the fist energy rushed past and destroyed the right corner of Zhao Fu's cloak. Luckily, Zhao Fu had dodged quickly and wasn't injured. After punching out, the Minotaur chief's body fell down. Bang! Bang! Muffled sounds could be heard, as if countless heavy objects were falling from the sky. These were the sounds of Minotaurs falling down. Afterwards, the sounds stopped. Zhao Fu came to the side of the trap and looked down. Most of the Minotaurs at the bottom of the hole had been stabbed full of holes, but some were still alive. However, what surprised Zhao Fu was that the Minotaur chief had fallen from such a high place, forcibly breaking the silver-grade spears at the bottom of the cave, and the spears had only left a few small wounds on the Minotaur chief's body. Roar! At the bottom of the cave, the Minotaur chief was completely infuriated. Its 6-meter-tall body exploded out with a ferocious azure aura, causing its body to double in size. Its skin became a bronze color and its horns gave off an azure light, giving off an incredibly terrifying aura. Zhao Fu was shocked and immediately ordered, "Hurry up!" The goblins obeyed and quickly set up wooden planks to form a slope before pushing down the boulders that they had prepared. A large number of boulders tumbled down the slope, giving off massive sounds. Zhao Fu didn't hesitate and used all of his strength to pick up a 3-meter-wide boulder and throw it at the trap. He then picked up more boulders and threw them at the trap. The nearby boulders, as well as the boulders that they had prepared, were all thrown into the trap, causing the 100-meter-deep hole to become 30 or so meters tall. Only then did Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, Zhao Fu had thought that he might not be able to kill the Minotaur chief, so he had prepared a backup plan, which was to bury them alive. As such, he had prepared many boulders, or else the berserk Minotaur chief would have rushed out. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu looked down at the trap and found that the boulders were moving. The Minotaur chief was still alive. Zhao Fu was given a big fright and he yelled, "Hurry up and destroy the hole." Hearing this, the exhausted goblins were also given a big fright. Some used fireballs and ice balls to destroy the walls, while the hobgoblins slashed at the ground around the hole, causing the ground there to fall into the trap. After another shocking battle, Zhao Fu and the 30 or so goblins completely sealed off the massive trap. However, before the goblins could let out a sigh of relief, the ground started to violently shake as if there was an earthquake. Luckily, the shaking only lasted for a few moments before it stopped. This Minotaur chief's strength is so ferocious. After everything calmed down, Zhao Fu couldn't help but exclaim to himself that the Minotaur chief's strength was comparable to his peak. Zhao Fu didn't know if the Minotaur chief was dead or not, and it was a pity that the items it had dropped were gone. However, Zhao Fu didn't dare to dig them up. Not only would it take too much time, but if the Minotaur chief wasn't completely dead, he wouldn't even have a chance to escape. Now that the matter had concluded, Zhao Fu led the goblins to the ruined castle and arrived in front of a large stone door. The door was 4 meters tall, and there were exquisite carvings on it, making it look quite ancient. Zhao Fu hadn't been able to see it clearly from afar, but now that he was closer, he saw that there was a half-meter wide magic engraving at the center of the door. There was a silver ring at the center of the engraving. The silver ring was quite beautiful, and there were mysterious carvings on it, making it look like a beautiful fairy. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and easily took out the silver ring, and Zhao Fu looked at its stats. Celia Cluman, grade, legendary, stats, all stats plus 10, description, a mysterious young girl's transformation into a ring that can bring luck to the wearer of this ring. Legendary grade equipment. This made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. With such a piece of legendary grade equipment, it wasn't a waste of his time. Just as Zhao Fu put the silver ring on his finger, the ring gave off a faint silver light, and a figure appeared beside him. This figure was a 17 or 18-year-old girl. She looked quite delicate and beautiful, and her figure was quite slim. Her skin was snow-white, and her eyes were red. She wore a gothic dress with a green top and a white skirt, and she gave off a refreshing aura. "Hello, Master." After the girl appeared, she sweetly smiled at Zhao Fu and called out in a crisp voice. Zhao Fu stared for a moment before realizing that this was a ringwraith. He smiled and nodded. Following this, Zhao Fu chatted with her for a while and found that she had a good temper and was quite obedient, much better than Sky Demon. At the same time, Zhao Fu found out that her name was the same as the equipment's name, Celia Cluman, so Zhao Fu called her Celia. Chapter 180. Looking at this exquisite stone door, Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and slowly pushed it open. It was quite dark behind the door, and he could only see 5 meters ahead. He couldn't see what was inside, and it was completely silent, making his hairs stand on end. Just as Zhao Fu was about to enter, a formless energy blocked him, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite surprised. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of the gloomy jungle command medallion, and after taking out a command medallion, the formless energy blocking him disappeared. Zhao Fu had fused 67 of these gloomy jungle command medallions, and Zhao Fu gave them to the goblins, planning to bring them in. However, Zhao Fu found that the goblins didn't need command medallions to enter, so he put them away. Zhao Fu lit a few torches and led the goblins through the door. At first, it seemed to be a very large passageway, and everyone looked quite nervous and on guard in case anything unexpected happened. After walking for a while, everyone came to a forest. The light here was very dim, but they could barely see some things. The trees here were also very lush, but from time to time there would be a few strange sounds coming from the forest, making it seem like the forest was a bit scary. They continued onwards. Soon, Zhao Fu encountered a few goblin muscle hands. These goblin muscle hands were different from normal goblins, or their skin was black, and their eyes were also black. Apart from looking quite ferocious, they also gave off an evil aura. In terms of strength, they were a bit stronger than normal goblin muscle hands. However, this wasn't a big deal, as Zhao Fu's side consisted of hobgoblins and blue-red goblins. Without even needing Zhao Fu to do anything, a group of hobgoblins surrounded them and swung their swords, dismembering the goblins. Apart from dropping command medallion shards, the goblins also dropped nail-sized gems. These gems had different colors and shapes. Some were rhombus, some were square, and some were irregular. On the surface, they looked quite beautiful. Zhao Fu checked the gemstone's attributes. Attribute gem, red, a grade. White, stats. Strength +1, description. Can be socketed onto any equipment to obtain additional stat. This gem had 4 colors. Red represented strength, white represented intelligence, green represented vitality, and blue represented agility. Is this the benefit of a secret plane? Holding the gemstones in his hands, Zhao Fu stood there and thought for a moment. At the same time, he understood the value of this secret realm. After all, ordinary blue-grade equipment only increased a single attribute. Moreover, blue-grade equipment was quite easy to obtain, while attribute gemstones were quite rare. As such, the value of these attribute gemstones might be even higher than ordinary blue-grade equipment. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Zhao Fu's face. Qin had gained another great help. But the next moment, several terrifying figures jumped out from one side at lightning speed. Immediately, a few screams rang out, and a black shadow ferociously attacked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's eyes turned cold as he pulled out the heavenly demon from his waist. With a swing of the sword, an arc of light flashed. Clang! The sound of metal clashing could be heard as Zhao Fu's sword was blocked by the opponent's claws. However, Zhao Fu was able to clearly see what kind of monster it was. It looked like a cat and was about the same size as a human. It had a lot of fur on its head, which covered its face, revealing only its sinister fangs. This monster was a cat demon. Zhao Fu slashed out with his sword, but it was blocked by the cat demon's claws. As the sword and claws collided, Zhao Fu's sword-wielding arm started to hurt, and the cat demon retreated and hid in the dense forest. Seeing this, Zhao Fu immediately yelled, "Hurry, retreat!" After exchanging a single blow with the cat demon, Zhao Fu found that the cat demon's strength had reached stage 2, and it was incredibly fast. If they didn't retreat, they would all die here. Following this, everyone started to run. Half an hour later, Zhao Fu and a group of goblins ran out, covered with wounds. Of the 32 goblins, 3 had died, and only 29 remained. Standing outside, Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief when he saw that the crisis had been resolved. Gloomy Jungle wasn't a place that they could explore right now, as it was simply too dangerous. Not only were the cat demons at stage 2, but they were also incredibly fast, and there were many of them. As such, he could only give up for now. After closing the stone doors, Zhao Fu distributed some healing medicine to the injured goblins. Zhao Fu had also suffered some injuries, but they were only superficial wounds, and the 3 flower spirits quickly healed him. Following this, Zhao Fu sat on a large rock and started to think about what to do next. Since he couldn't explore Gloomy Jungle for now, he could only leave. He had already been here for half a month, and he didn't know how Qin was doing. It was time to find the way back to Qin City, but that would depend on luck. Hopefully, he would be able to find a village with a teleportation channel, but that couldn't be rushed. He had a teleportation talisman that allowed him to teleport anywhere within 10,000 kilometers. This talisman was quite rare, but it could only shorten the distance by a third. Even if he used the teleportation talisman, he would still be 20,000 kilometers away from Ninesun City. Zhao Fu was quite reluctant to use this teleportation talisman, as he felt that it would definitely save his life. However, before leaving, Zhao Fu had to do some things. Gloomy Jungle was incredibly valuable, and he couldn't just leave it there. He had to take some measures. Chapter 181. After spending a lot of time and effort, Zhao Fu and the 29 goblins finally found a village 10 kilometers away from the historical remnant. It was a barbarian village. The barbarians were a race from the spring and autumn period, and their civilization was backward and barbaric. This village was only a beginner village, with a population of around 300 people. The barbarians, regardless of whether they were male or female, were all tall and sturdy. They were definitely good warriors. Although there were more than 300 people in the village, they did not pose much of a threat to Zhao Fu's group. This was because the cultivation of these barbarians were only at the 3rd or 4th layer, while Zhao Fu's group had a cultivation of at least the 1st layer. Moreover, because there were minotaurs in Gloomy Jungle, ancient power wasn't that rare. In order to protect this place, Zhao Fu distributed the ancient power from the minotaurs to his goblins. Now, Zhao Fu's goblins all had bulging muscles, and they were as strong as bulls. In terms of strength, these goblins had already reached stage 1 to 5. This was the advantage that high-grade soldiers had over low-grade soldiers. Zhao Fu and his goblins didn't conceal themselves as they walked out, and their bodies emitted a dense killing intent. Seeing Zhao Fu's group, the barbarian villagers became vigilant, and their soldiers gathered at the entrance of the village. Perhaps it was because he had sensed how powerful Zhao Fu's group was, but a fierce-looking man stood up and said, "It looks like you're telling Zhao Fu to scram, or else you're going to do something like that." Zhao Fu could not understand the barbarian language, and he did not have a good impression of other tribes. Anyone who studied history would know how these foreign tribes treated China in the past. They basically burned, killed, robbed, raped women, and committed all sorts of crimes. Kill everyone who resists. Zhao Fu stood calmly in front of the village and looked at it. Although his voice was soft, it was filled with thick killing intent. "Yes, my lord." The goblins behind Zhao Fu obeyed and charged towards the barbarian village. The barbarian villagers had already aimed their bows and arrows at Zhao Fu's group. When the goblins charged over, arrows flew towards them. The hobgoblins slashed out, sending out rays of sword light that easily knocked the arrow away. The blue-red goblins also released ice and fireballs and threw them over. The goblins were like dozens of ferocious tigers charging into a flock of sheep. This was a battle between Stage 1 soldiers and Stage 0 soldiers. If they had good equipment, they could use their advantage in numbers to defend against the goblins. However, how could a normal village defend against enemies that were many times stronger than them? This was a one-sided massacre. The wooden wall in front of the village was like a bubble, and with a swing of his sword, the wooden wall was completely destroyed. The barbarian race was quite ferocious, and both men and women wielded all kinds of weapons. However, they had found the wrong people. These hobgoblins were even more powerful than Stage 1 soldiers, and they were even more bloodthirsty. They savagely grinned as they rushed over with their swords. 10 or so minutes later, the battle concluded. Zhao Fu lowered his head and said to the 3 flower spirits, "If you don't want to see, you can hide in my clothes." The 3 flower spirits nodded. They didn't dare to look at such a bloody scene, so they hid in Zhao Fu's clothes. Following this, Zhao Fu walked towards the village, where there were corpses of barbarians on the ground. Blood was everywhere, creating a gory scene. After stepping over the corpses, Zhao Fu came to the village hall. The remaining 20 or so barbarians knelt together in terror, their faces pale, and their bodies trembled. The village of 300 or so people had been massacred, but in just a few moments, there were only a few left. The goblins around them were covered with blood and savagely smiling, looking like terrifying demons. They were not satisfied yet as they stared at the people who had surrendered. Zhao Fu's order was to kill anyone who resisted, so they did not dare to attack those who had surrendered. Zhao Fu's expression was quite calm, as he had seen this countless times. He went to the village hall and prepared to conquer the relocation village. At this moment, a woman carrying a baby suddenly ran out from the crowd of people kneeling in fear. She threw herself in front of Zhao Fu and knelt on the ground, begging with tears streaming down her face. "My lord, I beg you to spare my child." Zhao Fu stopped walking, but because he was wearing a black cloak, no one could see Zhao Fu's expression. One of the goblins was shocked and thought that Zhao Fu was blaming him for not keeping an eye on them. He hurriedly raised his sword, wanting to kill the mother and son. Seeing this, the woman hugged the baby in her arms in horror and kowtowed with all her might, crying and begging, "Lord, I beg you to spare my child." At that moment, the goblin's sword was about to descend. Blood sprayed everywhere as the mother and son were killed. "Stop!" Zhao Fu's voice rang out from under the cloak. Hearing this, the goblin hurriedly stopped and looked quite afraid as he begged, "My lord, this is my fault. This is my fault, please punish me." "No need, you can leave. Also, you can get up as well. I won't kill you." After saying this, Zhao Fu walked into the village hall. The goblin let out a sigh of relief, and the woman excitedly hugged her baby as she returned to the crowd. The other people who had surrendered also calmed down. Even though they were speaking in the barbarian language, because they had surrendered, as the Lord, Zhao Fu could translate for them, so he could understand what the woman was saying. Even though Zhao Fu did not have a good impression of these barbarians, he would not be inhumane. Those who had surrendered and become his subjects were all treated equally by Zhao Fu. He had only been moved by the woman's pleading. Some of it was because of his mother, but some of it was because of the sorrow of being weak. The barbarian race was famous throughout history, but if they were weak, they could only obediently kneel on the ground and beg for their lives. This stimulated Zhao Fu's desire for power. After going to the village hall, Zhao Fu was surprised to find that this was a blue-grade village. He chose to conquer and relocate it, obtaining 100 achievement points. Come to think of it, Zhao Fu's achievement points and EXP had been increasing quite quickly. He wondered what had happened to Qin, but he had recently received notifications from his subordinates about attacking villages. Moreover, when Zhao Fu had killed Gufeng, he had received 1,000 achievement points. Now Zhao Fu had 2,800 achievement points, and he was only 200 achievement points away from becoming a first-ranked baron. There was no point in raising his status, as Zhao Fu could not leave East Green yet. Zhao Fu thought about it and transferred all of his achievement points to Bai Qi. He had Bai Qi continue to help him open up a path to the outside world, buy property, and open a restaurant. Even though he was stuck here, someone had to do these things. After all, time was money, and every region could bring him massive benefits. He could not allow these things to be interrupted because of him. However, Zhao Fu's actions caused the entirety of Qin to tremble. Chapter 182. His Highness, who had not been heard from before, had transferred the achievement points to Bai Qi. This was a simple announcement which meant that Zhao Fu was safe. This caused everyone in Qin City to finally relax, and they let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, they were happy that Zhao Fu was safe because Zhao Fu was the ruler of Qin City, and he meant everything to Qin City. Soon, the higher-ups in Qin City once again gathered to discuss this matter. They understood why Zhao Fu had transferred the achievement points to Bai Qi. However, they had already taken care of this matter. Over the past few days, Bai Qi had been responsible for opening up the passages to the outside world. Zhao Fu's main strategy had not changed, and they had continued to expand towards the north. They had already opened up 6 passages, and they were only one region away from entering Vietnam's territory. Because Bai Qi's status was not high enough, he could not buy property, so he could not open a restaurant. However, the Chamber of Commerce had started to operate, and a large amount of money had flowed into Qin City. However, a large portion of this money was used in the war, as the spirit pills, skills, and various other consumables required a large amount of money to maintain. Even though they had spent a lot of money, the results were shocking. In the past 20 or so days, Qin City's population had increased to 70,000, and it was almost 80,000. Moreover, the surrounding 300-kilometer radius area had been brought under Qin City's control. This was many times faster than before, and most of the generals in Qin City had broken through to Stage 1 and started to train their own professions. At the same time, some of the soldiers had also broken through to Stage 1. This was because Bai Qi had not only bought healing and strength-increasing spirit pills, but he had also bought a large number of cultivation-increasing high-grade medicinal pills as battlefield rewards. Speaking of Qin City's battlefield rewards, there were all sorts of high-grade and expensive items, which continuously stimulated the soldiers' combat abilities and increased Qin City's passion for battle. How can one say that one has no clothes? Together with one's son. The Emperor has sent troops to repair my spear. Together with one's son. How can one say that one has no clothes? Together with one's son. The Emperor has sent troops to repair my spear. Together with one's son. How can one say that one has no clothes? Together with one's son. The Emperor has sent troops to repair my armor. Together with one's son. This was what Bai Qi wanted Great Qin's soldiers to be like. Equipment, skills, cultivation, and professions were all important to soldiers, but what was most important was the soul of a soldier. Bai Qi wanted to create an army that could conquer the world. Currently, Bai Qi City's main medicinal pills were still little spirit pills. The 100 origin grass was still growing, so it could not be used to make a large number of medicinal pills. Although the Qin City spirit pill was still spirit, it was still growing. The Bai Qin City's spirit plant was still growing in large numbers. Bai was Bai pills. Qin City in, Qin City's cheese, and the city, Qin City of long and Bai time. Qing City, Qi had and Qin, and has with Bai, had time, has and Qin City, Qi had time and Qin and had was, Qin City. After Zhao Fu conquered the village, he chose to relocate and obtained some EXP, as well as a barbarian tier. The barbarian tier's effect and shape were the same as the Xianbei tier. Zhao Fu looked at it and put it away. Afterwards, Zhao Fu took the city creation stone and the barbarians who had surrendered back to the Roland historical remnant. In the historical remnant, Zhao Fu looked around and found a place. He placed the city creation stone on the ground, and a blue wave of light spread out, creating a new village. This village was called Lonely Mountain Village, and Zhao Fu categorized it as a subsidiary village. At the same time, Zhao Fu appointed a barbarian as the village chief. This village was blue-grade, and with Qin City's subsidiary stats, it should be able to spawn 6 to 8 people every day. In a month or so, Lonely Mountain Village's population would be restored. Zhao Fu left 300 sets of equipment here. They weren't ancient winds but Zhao Fu's own, and they were all blue-grade equipment forged from bronze concentrate. Zhao Fu called over the newly appointed barbarian village chief, who was an elderly man. Because almost all of the barbarian youths had been killed by the goblins, the few that survived wouldn't be of much use, so Zhao Fu chose this elderly man who had some experience in management. Zhao Fu told the village chief to wait until the village's population increased before building up some defenses. He also told the village chief about some things that he needed to pay attention to. Because Zhao Fu wasn't sure when he would return, he told the village chief to be prepared to deal with all sorts of dangers. At the same time, Zhao Fu left all of the goblins here to defend the historical remnant with the barbarians. The historical remnant was incredibly valuable, and Zhao Fu hadn't explored much of Gloomy Jungle. This meant that the value within was much greater than what was on the surface, and Zhao Fu didn't want anything unexpected to happen here. After taking care of these matters, Zhao Fu took the 3 flower spirits and headed towards Nine Sun City. A day later, at noon, the sky was completely blue, and there weren't many clouds. Zhao Fu walked on a small path as a light breeze blew past him. The 3 flower spirits sat on Zhao Fu's shoulders, happily eating black forest fruit. Zhao Fu walked as he looked at the map of East Green. He felt that he was a bit lost, and he had deviated from Nine Sun City. Only after standing on a high place and looking at the map did he find the right direction. It was currently noon, and Zhao Fu felt quite hungry. Just as he was about to grab a wild animal to eat, a black figure suddenly leapt out from the bushes and attacked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's pupils constricted, and he punched out, sending the black figure flying. Even though Zhao Fu's strength had been suppressed by the City Lord Seal, after recovering, Zhao Fu's strength was now close to stage 2. If he was at his peak, his strength would be close to stage 3. After being sent flying by Zhao Fu's punch, the black figure was completely fine, and it immediately leapt at Zhao Fu, making Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. The black figure was incredibly fast, and it arrived in front of Zhao Fu in an instant. This time, Zhao Fu clenched his fists, causing cracking sounds to ring out as he punched out with all of his strength, sending the black figure flying 10 or so meters. Only then did Zhao Fu see the black figure's appearance. It was a boy who looked around 7 or 8 years old. He had very long hair and wore a beast hide, but he looked quite terrifying. His pupils were black, and he had a mouth full of sharp teeth. There were also some scales on his body, and he looked like a wild beast crawling on the ground as he stared at Zhao Fu. Even though the other party was a child, he had attacked Zhao Fu first, and his attack was filled with killing intent. However, Zhao Fu hated his gaze. This fellow actually saw him as food. Chapter 183. You're Seeking Death. Zhao Fu's body blurred and disappeared, and the 3 flower spirits sitting on Zhao Fu's shoulders flew up in fright. Zhao Fu's body reappeared 10 or so meters away, and he punched at the boy. Bang! The boy rolled on the ground, dodging the punch, and Zhao Fu's punch smashed open a crater in the ground. Following this, the boy jumped up from the ground and leapt at Zhao Fu from the side. He opened his mouth and bit at Zhao Fu like a wolf. Zhao Fu took a step back and twisted his waist, exploding out with immense power as he kicked out with his knee, hitting the boy's abdomen. A muffled explosion sounded out as the boy was sent flying and crashed to the ground, coughing up a mouthful of blood. Even though he had coughed up blood, the boy's injuries were quite light, and it didn't seem like he had been heavily injured. Moreover, Zhao Fu's kick had completely infuriated him, and he crawled on the ground and bared his teeth as he roared like a wild beast. In the next second, the boy's speed was incredibly fast, and he turned into a black blur as he rushed at Zhao Fu. His hand was like a sharp claw, and it gave off 5 cold rays of light as it grabbed towards Zhao Fu. Humph! Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and suddenly stretched out his hand like an illusion, grabbing onto the boy's hand. He twisted, and a cracking sound rang out as the boy's hand was broken by Zhao Fu. The boy's expression became incredibly savage as he madly rushed forwards, biting towards Zhao Fu's throat. However, Zhao Fu grabbed the boy's broken hand and lifted it up. The boy's small body flew into the air, and Zhao Fu's hand fell. Boom! The boy's body smashed onto the ground, and the immense force caused the ground to crack, opening up a 2-meter-wide crater. Blood seeped out of the boy's body, but he still stared at Zhao Fu fiercely. When Zhao Fu saw that the boy was still looking at him as food, he gave up on using the Sky Demon's sword to kill the boy. "You still want to eat me?" Zhao Fu was infuriated. This was the first time he had met someone who wanted to eat him, and it did not feel good. Zhao Fu raised his foot and stomped towards the boy. The little boy twisted his body and dodged Zhao Fu's kick, but in the next moment, he was kicked out by Zhao Fu's other kick and fell a few meters away. Roar! The little boy growled angrily like a wild beast and tried to stand up. Bang! But before he could stand up, Zhao Fu appeared beside him and sent him flying with a kick. Roar! The boy was completely enraged, and his body gave off a black aura that was incredibly evil and filled with sin. The boy gave off a terrifying aura and rushed at Zhao Fu. One of his hands had been broken, so he used his other hand to grab at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's body also gave off a Black King's aura, but unlike the boy's, Zhao Fu's King's aura was filled with nobility, domineeringness, and might. Seeing the boy rush at him, Zhao Fu clenched his fist and punched at the boy's hand. Arg! A pained cry sounded out as the boy once again flew backward. At the same time, his entire arm powerlessly fell to the ground. It had evidently been broken by Zhao Fu's punch. This time, the boy knew that he definitely was not a match for Zhao Fu, so he wanted to run. However, his gaze said that he would eat Zhao Fu after he recovered. Zhao Fu once again felt furious, and he rushed up and kicked the boy away. By now, the boy's arms had been broken, and he was unable to run like a wild beast. As such, he could only stand up, but Zhao Fu swept out with his leg and broke both of the boy's legs. However, even though his arms and legs were broken and he was lying on the ground, the boy still ferociously glared at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's expression was incredibly cold as he came to his side and slowly clenched his fist. A large amount of King's power gathered, and his fist gave off waves of black light as it gave off terrifying shockwaves. Boom! Zhao Fu punched the boy's chest, resulting in a muffled explosion. The ground cracked and the boy coughed up a large mouthful of blood. Almost all of the bones in his chest had been broken. In the end, Zhao Fu let out a breath. He did not want to waste any more time with this person who wanted to eat him, so he decided to kill him. Even though the boy was just a boy, he could not be blamed for this. Zhao Fu was not a soft-hearted person, and he grabbed the boy's neck and lifted him up. Zhao Fu wanted to break his neck and end his life. After all, this fellow had wanted to eat him, so how could Zhao Fu let him off? The boy's entire body seemed to have been broken by Zhao Fu, and he looked like a pile of mud. Facing Zhao Fu's murderous gaze, a trace of change appeared in the boy's eyes. There was a trace of fear, and confusion in his eyes. In the end, he revealed an expression of wanting to live. He did not want to die, and there was a trace of pleading in his eyes. However, Zhao Fu still wanted to kill him, and he started to apply force in his hand, preparing to break his neck. Suddenly, an item within Zhao Fu's King's ring started to move, causing Zhao Fu to stop. He sent his consciousness into the ring, and a strange expression appeared on his face as he took out that item. Perhaps he had been wrong. This was not an item but a set. The item that had moved was the kill equipment set, which gave off waves of blood-red light as if it wanted to recognize this boy as its master. This made Zhao Fu feel quite surprised. This was the first time he had seen equipment automatically recognize an owner. In order to make sure that he had made a mistake, Zhao Fu put the boy on the ground and placed the kill equipment set on him. The kill equipment set gave off an even more intense blood-red light and seemed to be filled with joy. This allowed Zhao Fu to confirm that the kill equipment set had automatically recognized him as its master. However, Zhao Fu started to hesitate because he had wanted to kill the boy, but the kill equipment set seemed to like the boy and had even automatically recognized him as its master. This meant that there was definitely something special about the boy. In the end, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided not to kill him. He wanted to see what was so special about this boy. However, from the boy's appearance, his black pupils, sharp teeth, and the scales on his body, it was clear that he was quite special and definitely not an ordinary human. Zhao Fu fed the boy a precious healing pill, and all of the bones that had been broken by Zhao Fu started to recover. At the same time, the boy's injuries also started to recover. However, the boy had fallen unconscious, and the kill equipment set that Zhao Fu had placed on his body gave off waves of blood-red light as it started to treat the boy's injuries. It seemed to be protecting its master loyally, making Zhao Fu feel quite speechless. Chapter 184. Even more annoying than a demon's aura? Zhao Fu thought back to the evil and sinful aura that the boy had given off. Looking at the unconscious boy, Zhao Fu decided to wait for him to wake up. Hearing the three flower spirits' words, the sky demon felt quite displeased. After all, she was a sky demon, so she coldly harumphed, scaring the three flower spirits. Under Zhao Fu's comforting, the three flower spirits calmed down and returned to Zhao Fu's side. Time gradually passed, and soon, the sky darkened. A bright moon hung high in the sky, and Zhao Fu started a bonfire and roasted a few rabbit. The three flower spirits were nestled in Zhao Fu's clothes and had fallen asleep. Zhao Fu sat next to the bonfire and was about to eat a rabbit when he found that the boy had woken up. This fellow had recovered quite quickly. Before, he had looked heavily injured, but now, he had mostly recovered. This was because of his constitution, the kill equipment set, and the medicinal pills that Zhao Fu had fed him. After waking up, the boy wanted to run, but he noticed that Zhao Fu was looking at him. The boy immediately lay on the ground and pressed his head against the ground, submitting to Zhao Fu like a wild beast. Zhao Fu received a system announcement that the boy had submitted, and he accepted it and looked at the boy's stats. Name: none grade, SSS title, none profession, none achievement points, commoner race, human, sin devil, age, 8, 500 loyalty, 60 stats, strength, 10, intelligence, 10, constitution, 10, agility, 10 cultivation, stage 0 cultivation technique, none skills, none equipment, beast skin. The boy did not have a name, and what surprised Zhao Fu was that he had SSS grade. Moreover, apart from being human, his bloodline was also a sin devil. What's a sin devil? Zhao Fu did not know what sort of creature it was or what race it was, but he felt that it was definitely quite powerful. This was especially so for its lifespan. It had 500 years of lifespan. 500 years? What did that mean? Most dynasties did not exist for that long. Moreover, this was only the initial lifespan. Once their power increased, their lifespan would increase. In this aspect, even Zhao Fu's level 9 king's bloodline was not as good as Zhao Fu's because Zhao Fu's king's bloodline did not increase his lifespan at all. The king's bloodline increased his power, and perhaps this was because ancient emperors did not live long. Goo goo! Suddenly, the little boy's stomach growled, interrupting Zhao Fu's thoughts. Zhao Fu smiled and gestured to the roasted hare at the side, saying, "Eat it all." Although the little boy did not understand what Zhao Fu was saying, he could still understand Zhao Fu's meaning with the Lord's spiritual translation effect. He immediately grabbed the roasted hare, not caring if it was hot or not. He crawled on the ground and ate it like a wild beast. Zhao Fu looked at this little boy. He had probably never lived with humans before. He did not understand the human language, or perhaps he did not understand anything. He was just like a wild beast. Zhao Fu did not know where he came from, but from what he had gone through, he could tell that he had lived like a wild beast since he was young. Sit up and eat. From today onwards, you're alone, Zhao Fu said as he looked at the little boy wolfing down the food on the ground. Hearing this, the little boy looked up and felt quite confused. He did not understand Zhao Fu's words, and Zhao Fu patiently explained it to him. Following this, the little boy copied Zhao Fu and sat up awkwardly. He also learned how to use his hand. Following this, the few hares that Zhao Fu had roasted were all eaten by the little boy. The little boy was full, and his gaze fell on the kill equipment set by the side, and he held it in his hands with delight. Wah wah! The little boy did not know how to speak, and he called out to Zhao Fu a few times, asking him what this was and how much he liked it. The kill equipment set had shamelessly gone to automatically recognize him as its owner, and now that the little boy liked it as well, Zhao Fu could only nod and say, "It's yours in the future." The little boy happily hugged the kill equipment set and rolled around on the ground. Zhao Fu wanted to take this little boy in. Just his SSS grade was something that Zhao Fu could not refuse, much less the Sin Devil bloodline. However, Zhao Fu first wanted to teach this little boy how to be a person. Seeing that he was so compatible with the kill equipment set, and that the little boy did not have a name, Zhao Fu decided to name him Little Sha. The little boy did not have any requirements for a name, nor did he have any opinions about it. He immediately accepted the name, and he even seemed quite happy about it. Next, Zhao Fu wanted to teach him some knowledge about how to be a person. The next day, early in the morning, the air was quite fresh and the sun had just risen. The grass was covered with sparkling dew, and Zhao Fu set out on his journey. The three flower spirits continued to be carefree and happily flew around Zhao Fu. Little Sha had already taken a bath and had changed into Zhao Fu's clothes. He used cloth to wrap the kill equipment set into a small bag and carried it on his back. Zhao Fu's clothes were quite big for him, so they were tied to his body, making him look quite strange. Even though he still looked quite terrifying, he looked more like a person and not like the monster from before. Little Sha's learning abilities were quite shocking, and he had already learned how to walk. He was no longer like the monster from before, using his hands and feet to run on the ground. Of course, Little Sha was still not used to walking, and he walked unsteadily like a baby learning how to walk as he followed behind Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu's walking speed was not very fast, so Little Sha was able to follow behind him. At that moment, Zhao Fu found 10 or so donkey-like creatures with gray fur and long white manes. Seeing this, Zhao Fu was delighted. He had finally found something to walk on. Over the past few days, he had been relying on Zhao Fu's legs to walk, but not only was it slow, but it was also tiring. Zhao Fu had Little Sha wait here while he took out 2 ropes and made them into lassos. He then carefully sneaked over, and Zhao Fu found that these creatures were called Greystone Beasts. Using his assassin profession, Zhao Fu easily came to the side of the Greystone Beasts, and the Greystone Beasts did not discover Zhao Fu. At that moment, Zhao Fu threw out 2 lassos which easily caught 2 Greystone Beasts. The other Greystone Beasts were startled and immediately ran to the side, while the 2 lassoed Greystone Beasts were held back by Zhao Fu, who then tamed them. After riding on the Greystone Beasts, Zhao Fu found that they were quite fast. He rode one and put the other into his spirit pet ring. Because Little Sha needed to learn how to walk, he did not give him the other one. If I knew things would turn out like this, I would have brought Little Black with me. With its current speed, it would take at most 2 weeks to reach Nine Sun City, Zhao Fu thought to himself. However, that was it for now. He would bring Little Black next time. Chapter 185. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. He had been looking for a village, and he had never thought that they would deliver themselves to him. Brat! Hurry up and hand over all of your valuables, and I'll spare your life," a bandit said as he pointed his saber at Zhao Fu and arrogantly laughed. The other bandits viciously glared at Zhao Fu and loudly laughed, saying, "Today's harvest is quite good. Let's not talk about whether or not this brat has money on him, but if we can take his greystone beast back and kill it, we'll be able to eat its meat today." Zhao Fu, who was riding on the greystone beast, couldn't help but laugh when he heard this bandit's words and looked at these reckless bandits. Hearing Zhao Fu's laughter, the bandits were infuriated, and the leader of the bandits yelled, "Brothers! Kill him!" Following this, the bandits raised their sabers and rushed up. Zhao Fu sat on his greystone beast and didn't show any signs of attacking. Behind him, a small, unassuming figure rushed out. Seeing that it was an 8-year-old boy, the bandits disdainfully laughed. A child like this dared to charge at them. He was simply seeking death. They were not soft-hearted people, and they swung their sabers towards Little Shah. Suddenly, a blood-red light flashed in Little Shah's hand as a blood-red dagger appeared in his hand. He ducked his body and dodged the incoming saber strike before rushing forwards, drawing a trace of blood red with his dagger. Pooh! Little Shah brushed past him, but the blood-red line that the dagger drew was incredibly sharp, and it sliced through the bandit's waist. Even in death, the bandit couldn't believe that he had been killed by a little boy. Soon, Little Shah arrived in front of another bandit and jumped up, drawing another line of blood red with his dagger as he cut off another bandit's head. The dagger that Little Shah was holding was part of the kill equipment set. Originally, the kill equipment set consisted of a ring, a hood, and a hidden blade. However, Zhao Fu discovered that even though the assassin profession was an assassin, it could control all types of weapons, which meant that it could use any type of weapon. The 12 equipment sets would also change their forms according to their owners. Currently, only Little Shah had managed to turn his hidden blade into a dagger. In Zhao Fu's opinion, the subordinates who had received the 12 sets might not have received the acknowledgement of the sets themselves, nor had they fully received the power of inheritance. Because the kill equipment set had automatically recognized Little Shah as its owner, it was extremely compatible with Little Shah. Now, the kill equipment set's true power was unleashed. Countless attacks appeared in Little Shah's mind, and his body also gave off a wave of killing power. As soon as he thought about it, he was able to execute it perfectly, turning into an experienced assassin. In just a few short minutes, the battle quickly ended. A few bloody lines could be seen twisting in the air. The bandits had died a miserable death, as they had all been dismembered. After doing all this, Little Shah returned to Zhao Fu's side and transformed back into a person who didn't even know how to walk. "Sir, spare me." Zhao Fu smiled as he looked at the bandit kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. This bandit was the bandit who had yelled at Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu had told Little Shah to leave him alive. "Get up. I won't kill you, but you have to take me to your village," Zhao Fu said as he lightly laughed. When the bandit heard Zhao Fu's words and saw that even the little brat next to him was so powerful, he felt that Zhao Fu was even more unfathomable. If he brought such an expert back to his village, it would definitely be a disaster. However, that wasn't what the bandit wanted. As long as he could keep himself alive, he wouldn't care about other people's lives. Yes, sir, I'll take you there right away." The bandit quickly agreed without any hesitation, and he smiled as he stood up, wanting to flatter Zhao Fu. However, Zhao Fu wasn't interested at all. He threw the rope that he had used on the greystone beast and had the bandit lead the way. The bandit could only awkwardly nod his head. The bandit had been tied up and was leading the way, while Zhao Fu was holding onto a rope and riding the greystone beast in the middle. Behind him was a little boy who didn't seem to know how to walk. "How many people are there in your village?" Zhao Fu wasn't a brute, so he had to have some information. If there were thousands of them, they could easily crush us to death. Wouldn't it be too humiliating to go over like this? "Sir, Our village has 400 or so brothers, and the leader is Nyoli. The bandit didn't hide anything. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded and asked, "Does your village have a teleportation channel? Or a scholar that knows how to build teleportation channels?" The bandit didn't quite understand what Zhao Fu meant, but he still replied honestly, "About that, we don't have any use for it." Hearing this, Zhao Fu inwardly sighed. It really was hard to find a village with a teleportation channel. Zhao Fu didn't want to go to that bandit village. After all, what use would there be if he killed all of the bandits and obtained a city creation stone? Right now, city creation stones weren't very attractive to Zhao Fu. System announcement. Your Qin town has leveled up to an intermediate town. System announcement. A historical figure that has been sleeping in Qin's legacy has awakened. Suddenly, a system announcement sounded out in Zhao Fu's mind, causing him to feel quite surprised. He hadn't thought that Qin town would level up so quickly. It seemed that he had obtained a lot of EXP from the battle at Heavenstone City, and adding on the fact that Qin town was constantly raiding, the town had leveled up so quickly. Who is this historical figure that has awakened? Zhao Fu didn't know. He couldn't check here, so he would have to wait until he returned to Qin town. Chase after them. Don't let them get away. Just as Zhao Fu was about to release the bandits and give up on going to the bandit village, a voice sounded out from ahead. There were 10 or so cavalrymen chasing after a carriage. The person driving the carriage felt incredibly anxious, and he vigorously whipped his horse, trying to shake off the 10 or so cavalrymen. However, the 10 or so cavalrymen were hot on his heels. Finally, the cavalrymen caught up to the carriage and surrounded it. The leader of the cavalrymen coldly laughed as he said, "Big Miss Lu, you won't be able to get away. You won't be able to escape, so I advise you to surrender. Otherwise, don't blame us." At that moment, a beautiful woman in white walked out of the carriage and said hatefully, "I've already handed Mountain Willow Town to you. Why won't you let my family go? This is the new mayor's order. Men, capture them," the leader of the cavalrymen yelled with a cold expression. Following this, a few of the cavalrymen dismounted and walked towards the carriage. The woman in white tried to resist, but she was captured in an instant. The cavalryman then grabbed an elderly woman and a 5 or 6-year-old boy from within the carriage. Not too far away, Zhao Fu watched this scene and asked the bandit, "Mountain Willow Town?" The bandit immediately replied in a fawning manner, "Sir, Mountain Willow Town is the largest faction in the surrounding 100 kilometers, and it should have the teleportation channel that Sir is looking for." Chapter 186. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. Indeed, a town would definitely have a teleportation channel. At that moment, the beautiful woman in white was caught by 2 soldiers. She desperately struggled, but she couldn't break free at all. Even if she broke free, she would see her little brother and her elderly grandmother, making it impossible for her to escape. However, she also understood the consequences of being caught. "I'll be put under house arrest by that Zhang Hong again. Once he stabilizes his position, he'll definitely cut the weeds and eliminate the root. Not only me but also my brother and grandmother." Suddenly, the woman in white looked at the 3 strange people and cried out with a trace of hope, "Save us! Please save us!" The bandit in front of her curled his lips and thought to himself, "Who's going to save you?" Zhao Fu didn't move for now, and he thought about the benefits and drawback. If it was a normal robbery, it was possible that Zhao Fu would intervene. Even though he wouldn't gain anything, he wouldn't lose anything either. However, this matter was related to whether or not he could quickly return to Qin City. If he acted and offended this town, he definitely wouldn't be able to use their teleportation channel. Moreover, he would be dragged into this mess, and he would only be thanked in name. At that moment, the captain of the cavalrymen noticed Zhao Fu and the others and coldly harumphed as he said, If you don't want to die, hurry up and piss off. This is Mountain Willowtown's business. Don't meddle in other people's business." The captain's words caused Zhao Fu to frown. Seeing that Zhao Fu wasn't moving at all and seemed to be ignoring him, the captain felt quite furious. He turned his head and signaled for the 5 cavalrymen to go and kill Zhao Fu and the others. To them, they were just 3 refugees, and they were the most powerful faction in the surrounding 100-kilometer radius area. As such, they had no qualms about killing them. The 5 cavalrymen drew their swords and leapt onto their horses as they charged towards Zhao Fu. Seeing this, the bandit immediately hid behind Zhao Fu. He didn't have anything to be afraid of, because these cavalrymen's cultivation was only slightly higher than his, and they weren't that powerful. As for the bandits, they had been completely slaughtered by the little monster behind Zhao Fu, and they hadn't been able to resist at all. As such, there was nothing to fear from bandits. After all, their fates had already been decided. They were just afraid of standing at the front and getting their blood splashed all over them. The 5 cavalrymen quickly arrived in front of Zhao Fu. The bandit turned his head and looked at Little Sha, who was behind Zhao Fu. He swallowed his saliva, as if he could see Little Sha going on a killing spree again. As the 5 cavalrymen charged over, Little Sha only revealed a ferocious expression and did not attack, causing the bandits to feel quite startled. Clang! A clear sword hum sounded out as a 5 to 6 meter long black arc of light flashed past. The 5 incoming cavalrymen's necks were instantly sliced open, and large amounts of blood spurted out. However, the 5 cavalrymen were immediately enveloped by an evil power. In the next second, the 5 cavalrymen became withered corpses at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even their horses neighed as they were devoured. The bandit was given a big fright, and he took a few steps away from Zhao Fu as he thought to himself, "I was right, Zhao Fu is the most terrifying one." Seeing this, the woman in white felt quite delighted and loudly called out, "Sir, if you save us, I'll give Mountain Willowtown to you." When he heard this, Zhao Fu turned and calmly glanced at her. When the captain of the cavalrymen saw that his subordinates had been killed, he was infuriated and led the remaining cavalrymen over. However, in just a few exchanges, blood splattered everywhere, and all of the cavalrymen were dead. The captain of the cavalrymen, who had the highest cultivation, was only at stage 0 to 8, so how could he be a match for Zhao Fu? After killing all of the cavalrymen, Zhao Fu rode his greystone beast towards the woman in white. When the young boy saw Zhao Fu walk over in his black cloak, he felt quite afraid. The elderly woman hugged the young boy, and when she saw Zhao Fu kill people without batting an eye, she felt quite wary. She could sense that this person was quite terrifying, and the servant who had driven the carriage nervously came to the woman in white's side to prevent anything unexpected from happening. "Do you know what you're saying?" Zhao Fu came to the woman in white's side and looked at her as he spoke calmly. The woman in white recovered from her panic and tidied up her clothes, looking like a young miss. She slightly bowed to Zhao Fu and said, "Thank you, sir, for saving my life. What I said was indeed the truth, but sir needs to kill Zhang Hong, and I'm willing to give Mountain Willowtown to sir." Now that things had become like this, there was no way to change anything. The requirement for leveling up to a basic city was to take down 3 towns. Between leveling up a village into a town and conquering a town was definitely much easier and faster. Zhao Fu had his eyes on those towns. "Let's go. Let's leave this place first." Following this, Zhao Fu and his group came to a large tree to rest. Zhao Fu said to the woman in white, "Tell me everything you know and don't hide anything." Hearing this, the white-clothed woman told him everything Zhao Fu wanted to know. After hearing the woman in white's words, Zhao Fu started to organize his thoughts. She was called Lu Subai, and she was the daughter of Lu Ming, the mayor of Mountain Willowtown. 1 month ago, Lu Ming had suddenly died for some reason. The position of mayor should have been inherited by Lu Ming's children, but it had been taken by Zhang Hong. Zhang Hong had been the most powerful person in Mountain Willow Town and controlled a large portion of the town's military. He had a lot of power in Mountain Willow Town, and Lu Ming had been wary of Zhang Hong. However, for some reason, he hadn't been able to get rid of him. Now that Lu Ming had suddenly died, Lu Subai suspected that it was Zhang Hong who had done it. Even though Zhang Hong had taken over Mountain Willow Town and become the mayor, he didn't have a good reputation because most of the residents supported the Lu family. Even though Zhang Hong controlled a large portion of the town's military, he didn't dare to use force against most of the residents and a small portion of the military. As such, he wanted to marry Lu Subai and establish a solid foundation so that he could take over Mountain Willow Town and make it his instead of the Lu family. This time, Lu Subai had found an opportunity to escape, but she had been discovered in the end, just like what had happened to Zhao Fu. Mountain Willow Town was a silver-grade town, and it had around 23,000 residents and 4,000 soldiers. Most of the soldiers had white-grade equipment, and a small number of elites had blue-grade equipment. Most of the soldiers' cultivation was around stage 4 to 6. Finally, there was a brief introduction to Zhang Hong. His strength was at stage 2, and his weapon was a gold-grade sword. At the same time, Zhang Hong also had many silver-grade weapons. Chapter 187. Lu Subai spoke in great detail, and her expression and emotions didn't seem fake. However, despite this, Zhao Fu still couldn't fully trust her. After all, would you trust someone you've only met once? Do you want to take revenge? I can help you, but you'll have to pay a price for it. After speaking, Zhao Fu handed over 4 life and death contracts. If he didn't control their lives in his own hands, Zhao Fu definitely wouldn't be able to trust her 100%. These 4 life and death contracts caused Lu Subai and the others' expressions to become quite grim. Who would be happy putting their lives in someone else's hands? Lu Subai thought for a moment before making up her mind and saying, I can sign the contract with you, but you have to let my little brothers and the others go. I don't want their lives to be threatened or controlled. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt that controlling her was enough, so he nodded and agreed. Seeing the life and death contracts turn into countless traces of spirit light and enter Lu Subai's body, Zhao Fu made up his mind and started to make plans. He first had to have his own soldiers and use Mountain Willow Town to support the Lu family's people. Only then would he be able to resist Zhang Hong. Thinking to this point, Zhao Fu looked at the bandit who was still tied up and smiled. A few hours later, Zhao Fu continued to ride on the Greystone Beast with the bandits leading the way and Little Sha, who was learning how to walk, following behind him. At that moment, Zhao Fu and the others arrived at a messy village. Everything was thrown around, and there was no order at all. Everyone was doing their own things. When the bandits appeared in front of the village with ropes tied around their necks, the bandits in the village immediately fell into chaos. Some were shocked, while others wanted to watch the show. They held their weapons and appeared at the entrance of the village, looking at the 3 strange people before them. Dong's son, didn't you take 10 or so brothers to rob others? How did you end up like this? Seeing this, one of the bandits who had led the way couldn't help but laugh as he spoke. Dong's son was the bandit leading Zhao Fu, and he looked quite awkward. However, after thinking about it, he loudly laughed as he replied, I'm leading an esteemed sir. You have come to our lone wolf village for some matters. Right now, Master is in need of manpower. I advise you all to surrender to Master as soon as possible. By now, Dong's son completely understood how powerful Zhao Fu was, and he knew that Zhao Fu would definitely take down this village. If I don't show off now, when will I? Not only will I be able to keep my life, but I might even become a minor official in the future. Deng Ke's words caused the bandits to feel quite surprised, and their expressions became serious. They weren't stupid, and they all looked at Zhao Fu, who was riding on the Greystone Beast. What? Your elder's going to kill you. A ferocious-looking big man came to the entrance of the village. He was the chief of Lone Wolf Village. When he heard Dong Sun's words, he furiously yelled as he came to the entrance of the village. He was the chief of Lone Wolf Village, and when he heard Dong Sun's words, he felt quite afraid. When Dong Sun saw the chief's ferocious aura, he felt quite afraid. Normally, he would submit to the chief's ferociousness, but with Zhao Fu's support, he didn't have to be afraid. Just as he was about to retort, Zhao Fu said calmly, "I'm here to take over Lone Wolf Village. It's not too late for you to surrender, and I don't want to kill too many people." Ha ha! When he heard Zhao Fu's words, the chief loudly laughed. Zhao Fu had come alone, yet he dared to say such words. He immediately said, "Shoot! Kill these people!" Swish, 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 the 60 or so archers obeyed and shot out arrows. Facing the incoming arrows, Zhao Fu raised his right hand and stretched out his arm. Just as the arrows were about to hit Zhao Fu, a black dragon inscription barrier spread out, covering the 2 meters around Zhao Fu and deflecting all of the arrows. Following this, an aura that was even more powerful than Stage 2 power exploded out from Zhao Fu's body and covered everyone. Immediately, everyone was shocked. They had never seen anyone with Stage 2 power before. After all, the most powerful person among them, the chief, only had Stage 1 cultivation. Today you'll definitely die. If anyone wants to die, feel free to attack. Zhao Fu's gaze was cold as he drew the Sky Demon's sword and pointed it at the chief. The other bandits started to hesitate. They were bandits, and they weren't very loyal. Now that Zhao Fu was so powerful, they felt that they couldn't defeat him, so they didn't want to lose their lives. This infuriated the chief, and he yelled with killing intent, "Who dares to disobey my orders? I'll cut him into pieces and make him beg for death. He's just one person, while we have 400 people. What do we have to be afraid of?" Hearing this, the bandits all prepared to attack Zhao Fu. Suddenly, a small, unassuming figure snuck into the crowd, causing a chain of cries to sound out as blood splattered everywhere. In just a few moments, 20 or so bandits had lost their lives. This caused all of the bandits to feel quite shocked. Following this, the figure returned to Zhao Fu's side. It was the unassuming boy. Dong Sun, who had been hiding nearby, smirked as he said, "Now you all know how terrifying this little monster is. I said that if anyone wants to die, feel free to attack. Do you really think that I don't have the power to slaughter your entire village?" Zhao Fu's gaze was cold, and his tone was filled with killing intent, causing all of the bandits to feel a chill in their hearts. "Hurry up and attack. Archers, fire your arrows." The chief was given a big fright and immediately yelled out a series of orders. However, under Zhao Fu's cold gaze, none of the bandits dared to move. Perhaps they already knew what would happen, so they no longer listened to the chief's orders. Seeing this, the chief was filled with rage, but there was nothing he could do. He could only angrily grab his great spear and rush at Zhao Fu. The chief's movements were also quite fast and ferocious, and he arrived in front of Zhao Fu in an instant. He gripped his great spear and vigorously stabbed out. The great spear tore through the air and stabbed towards Zhao Fu with immense destructive power. However, at that moment, Zhao Fu casually swung his sword, deflecting the bandit chief's spear. This caused the bandit chief, who had been very confident, to feel quite shocked. Following this, Zhao Fu slashed out with his sword, and a black sword light flashed out, decapitating the chief and killing him. This chief only has Stage 1 cultivation. How could Zhao Fu lose? After the chief died, the other bandits immediately threw down their weapons and knelt on the ground, crying and begging for mercy. He even said that he had eyes but couldn't see an offended sir. Dong Sun walked out from the side with a smile on his face. It was just as he thought. Next, it was time for Zhao Fu to take over Lone Wolf Village. Lu Subai and the others, who had been left outside by Zhao Fu, were also brought into the village. After finding out that Zhao Fu had subdued a village of bandits so quickly, Lu Subai and the others were quite shocked. Chapter 188. After subduing the bandit village, Zhao Fu directly threw out 400 sets of silver-grade equipment. This was almost all of the silver-grade equipment that he had obtained from Gu Feng. The bandits, including Lu Subai, were all quite shocked when they saw Zhao Fu throw out so much silver-grade equipment. Even Mountain Willow Town didn't have so much silver-grade equipment. After all, even the higher-ups of Mountain Willow Town only had a single piece of silver-grade equipment, and only the chief of the bandit village had a single piece of silver-grade equipment, which was the great spear that the bandit chief had been holding. Just who is Zhao Fu? By now, Zhao Fu became more and more mysterious to everyone, and no one could guess his identity. However, they didn't dare to openly ask, as that would be equivalent to seeking death. Their fear of Zhao Fu greatly increased. There were many reasons why Zhao Fu had these bandits equipped with silver-grade equipment. Compared to Mountain Willow Town, Zhao Fu's side had fewer people, and their cultivation and equipment were inferior. As such, they had no advantage at all. Giving them silver-grade equipment not only increased their battle strength, but also increased their confidence. However, seeing how lazy and undisciplined these bandits were, Zhao Fu decided to properly train them in battle. Within Mountain Willow Town, a middle-aged man with a hooked nose frowned and asked one of his subordinates, "What's going on? Where are the Lu family members?" The subordinate respectfully lowered his head and replied, "When we went, we only found 10 or so corpses of our soldiers. They seem to have been attacked by some sort of demonic beast, but we didn't find anyone from the Lu family." "Humph. That means they ran away," Zhang Hong said unhappily as he coldly harumphed. The subordinate nodded and said, "It's possible that they ran away, or it's possible that they were attacked by demonic beasts, but we didn't find any corpses. However, sir, those old and young won't be able to survive in the wilderness for long. They'll either be killed by bandits or eaten by wild beasts. Right now, what we should be doing is comforting the people in the town." Zhang Hong thought for a moment before replying, "I understand. You can leave for now." Following this, the subordinate respectfully left. Back at Zhao Fu's side, Zhao Fu started to train the bandits, especially on how to cooperate in battle. After a few days of intense training, the bandits also started to look like soldiers. With that, Zhao Fu led the 400 bandits and Lu Subai to carry out the plan. A few hours later, Zhao Fu and his bandits came to a hillside and looked at Mountain Willow Town in the distance. Mountain Willow Town was quite big, and it covered 10 or so kilometers. It had walls that were 6 meters tall, and if it was just Zhao Fu and his 400 bandits, they definitely wouldn't be able to conquer it. Because of Lu Subai, Zhao Fu was quite familiar with the situation in Mountain Willow Town. He had set up an ambush here because he was waiting for someone. Even though most of the soldiers had pledged their allegiance to Zhang Hong, there was still a small portion who weren't willing. They still supported the Lu family, and Zhang Hong definitely didn't treat them well. Zhao Fu gave them the most tiring and unrewarding task, which was patrolling the outskirts of Mountain Willow Town. The patrolling area was quite large, and they had to check the entire 5-kilometer radius of Mountain Willow Town. Apart from this, there were also many guards on the town walls and soldiers patrolling nearby. Mountain Willow Town's defenses were quite tight, and there were 3 layers of defenses. The first layer was the soldiers patrolling the 5-kilometer radius, the second layer was around Mountain Willow Town, and the third layer was the guards on the town walls. Perhaps some people didn't trust the soldiers on the first layer, but Zhang Hong's main defenses were on the second and third layers. Most of the soldiers here were elites, as well as his trusted subordinates. He wouldn't allow anything to happen here. On the other side, a group of roughly 200 soldiers walked over. At this moment, one of the soldiers was quite dissatisfied and said resentfully, "That Zhang Hong is too much. He sent us here. Before, we were Mayor Lu's trusted subordinates, and we were the elites of Mountain Willowtown. Who would have thought that we would end up like this? All of our good equipment has been taken away, and we work so hard every day. We're not even welcomed back." Another soldier angrily said, "That's right. That Zhang Hong doesn't even see us as Mountain Willowtown soldiers. He just wants us to die as soon as possible so that he doesn't have to do anything himself. Just look at how arrogant Zhang Hong and his people are. I'm so angry. I suspect that Mayor Lu's death might have something to do with that Zhang Hong." "Alright, enough. Now that Zhang Hong is the new mayor and is going to marry Big Miss Lu, Mountain Willowtown will completely belong to Zhang Hong. Let's not complain anymore, we're so tired because we're protecting Mountain Willowtown," a middle-aged man, who seemed to be the captain, said with a sigh. Even though the other soldiers were quite dissatisfied after thinking about it, they could only sigh. "Be careful. There are enemies." At this moment, the middle-aged captain suddenly yelled, causing the other soldiers to feel quite startled. Following this, figures walked out from the side and surrounded the 200 soldiers. Looking at the enemies around them, as well as the silver equipment on their bodies, the middle-aged captain and the others' pupils constricted. The middle-aged team leader and the others narrowed their eyes and became nervous. They might be in danger now. "Who are you? Do you know that we're from Mountain Willowtown?" the middle-aged captain asked with a serious expression. He felt quite confused as to why such a powerful group had suddenly appeared in Mountain Willowtown. "Uncle Sun." Suddenly, a pleasantly surprised and familiar voice sounded out from beside Sun Xiaowei. Sun Xiaowei, the middle-aged captain, turned and saw that it was Lu Subai. "Big Miss Lu, weren't you at home? Why are you here, and who are they?" Sun Xiaowei asked in surprise. He then looked around at the enemies and found that Lu Subai was with them. "Uncle Sun, it's like this. I was imprisoned by Zhang Hong before, and it wasn't easy for me to escape. Also, I suspect that my father's death was caused by Zhang Hong, and this sir is here to help me take back Mountain Willowtown." Lu Subai was quite happy to see someone she knew, and she started to explain to Sun Xiaowei. She then stretched out her hand and introduced Zhao Fu to Sun Xiaowei. After hearing Lu Subai's words, everyone's gazes fell on the mysterious black-cloaked figure. At first glance, Sun Xiaowei could tell that Zhao Fu was not as simple as he looked, and he became a little wary. He then turned his gaze back to Lu Subai and asked, "Miss, are you telling the truth?" Lu Suyun nodded seriously. Then, she told him about her conjecture and her experience. Hearing what had happened to Lu Subai, the soldiers loyal to the Lu family were furious. They were almost 100% sure that Zhang Hong had killed Mayor Lu. In addition, Zhang Hong had treated them badly, so they quickly joined Zhao Fu's team. Chapter 189. First of all, let me talk about the reason why I'm posting this here. I think a lot of people will watch pirated versions. I want to say that if you really don't have any financial ability, I will express my understanding. Without your support, I wouldn't be able to survive because people need to eat to live, and I'm just a mediocre mortal. My family isn't rich, and the results of this book aren't good either. The editor doesn't think much of it, and the results are already like this. So, I hope that everyone can support me and give me food to eat, or even half a bag of spicy gluten. It'll be a great help to me, and I'll definitely update more to repay you. After taking in these 200 soldiers, Zhao Fu's forces had expanded to 600 soldiers. At first, Sun Xiaowei didn't quite believe that Zhao Fu would be able to help Lu Subai take back Mountain Willowtown with such a small number of soldiers. However, there was nothing they could do. Zhao Fu was their only hope. If they didn't resist, Mountain Willowtown would definitely belong to Zhang Hong. Right now, most of the residents were loyal to the Lu family, but as time passed, the people would acknowledge Zhang Hong. At that time, it would be almost impossible to take back Mountain Willowtown. At the same time, Zhao Fu briefly explained the plan in his mind. Only then did they have a little more confidence and agree with Zhao Fu's method. Other than this team, there were also 2 patrol teams. However, among these 2 teams there were people that Zhang Hong had planted here, so they needed to be dealt with specially. The 3 teams were patrolling in different directions. The other 2 teams were patrolling on the other side. Zhao Fu saw that it was getting late. Sun Xiaowei also understood this, so he proposed to split into 2 teams. One team was led by Sun Xiaowei to subdue the other patrol team and kill the people that Zhang Hong had placed there. The other team would be taken care of by Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu agreed with this plan and the 2 teams split up. On the other side of Mountain Willow Town, 10 or so arrogant soldiers swaggered forwards, followed by a group of dejected and sighing soldiers. "Can you guys hurry up? I still want to go back early and hug my little baby." At this moment, one of the leaders turned his head to look at the group of people behind him and shouted in dissatisfaction. The soldiers behind him looked somewhat furious because the 10 or so people in front of them had relied on Zhang Hong to gain status. Not only did they order them around, but they also wanted them to do this and that while they rested and played. Even though they felt resentful, they endured it and did not say anything. Suddenly, more figures rushed out from the side and surrounded the patrol team. This gave the patrol team quite a fright, and the leader of the patrol team looked around in panic as he yelled, "We're from Mountain Willow Town. You'd best be smart and piss off." "Humph. Of course I know you're from Mountain Willow Town." A soft snort sounded from the side. Everyone looked over and saw that it was Lu Subai. The people in front were stunned, but the people behind were delighted. "Miss Lu, why are you here?" Lu Subai stepped out and repeated what she had said to Sun Xiaowei. The 10 or so people who had submitted to Zhang Hong yelled, "Miss Lu has been bewitched by someone else. Mayor Zhang wouldn't do something like that. Hurry! Stop these people for now. We'll go back and report this to Mayor Zhang." The 10 or so people felt that the situation was bad, so they had the others stop Zhao Fu's group so that they could escape. However, not a single person listened to them. "All right, miss, we're willing to help you take back Mountain Willow Town. We've received a lot of kindness from Mayor Lu in the past." The soldiers thought for a moment before making a decision. Hearing their words, the 10 or so people at the front started to panic and immediately tried to run for their lives. However, the bandits who had surrounded them rushed up and killed them in just a few moments. However, they left one of them alive to use him for other purposes. After subduing this group, Zhao Fu met up with Sun Xiaowei. Because there were roughly 200 people in each group, Zhao Fu's group now had 1,000 people. By now, the sky had darkened, and stars started to appear in the sky. It was yet another moonless night. After discussing their strategy in detail, they decided to send the bandits to replace the people who had surrendered to Zhang Hong and infiltrate Mountain Willow Town under the cover of night. This wasn't very difficult, as they had Zhang Hong's people covering for them. According to Zhao Fu's plan, Sun Xiaowei had the soldiers go back to eat and drink before going back to sleep and recover from their exhaustion. Mountain Willow Town was the same as before, and nothing had changed. However, undercurrents were beginning to stir. Zhao Fu had the people outside of Mountain Willow Town rest and build up their strength while they waited for an opportunity to strike. Time gradually passed, and soon it was midnight. Everything quieted down, and it was as if all of Mountain Willow Town had fallen asleep. The night wind started to blow, and the clouds in the sky covered up the faint starlight, making it quite dark. The time had come, and Sun Xiaowei started to move. He put on his equipment and went to the town walls. He had most of the soldiers hide before leading a few people towards the town walls. When the general at the town gates saw Sun Xiaowei walking over, he looked quite confused and stopped them, saying, "Sun Xiaowei, why did you come here so late at night?" Sun Xiaowei put on a smile and tried to curry favor as he said, "Brother Li, I've been thinking about it recently, and I can't take this kind of treatment. I've been thinking about it recently, and I can't take this kind of treatment anymore. I want to join Mayor Zhang, but I was too forceful before, and I'm afraid that Mayor Zhang won't like me. I see that Mayor Zhang likes Brotherly, so I want to ask Brotherly to help me." Following this, Sun Xiaowei took out a pouch filled with gold coins and gave it to the general. The general looked at it and was delighted. Sun Xiaowei's abilities are quite good, but he's quite stubborn and doesn't want to submit. If he helps Sun Xiaowei submit, he will be rewarded by Zhang Hong. "That's no problem. I'll put in a good word for you in front of Mayor Zhang." The general smiled and agreed to Sun Xiaowei's request, but in the next moment, he felt a chill in his heart and his hairs stood on end. Pooh! A sharp dagger stabbed into the general's chest, causing him to look quite confused. He had never thought that Sun Xiaowei would kill him. The few people behind Sun Xiaowei also rushed up and caught the unprepared soldiers off guard, killing them and dragging the corpses to a hidden corner. The soldiers hiding in the surroundings also rushed up the wall and killed the unprepared guards. After taking control of everything, Sun Xiaowei lit 3 torches on the town walls and gave the order to open the town gates. Time was of the essence. Zhao Fu, who had been hiding near Mountain Willow Town, immediately led his people to meet up with Sun Xiaowei. Following this, the 1,000 soldiers ferociously charged towards the mayor's residence. However, as the mayor, Zhang Hong had received a system announcement and was woken up from his sleep. He immediately gave the order. Immediately, the sleeping Mountain Willow Town was awoken and fell into chaos. Large numbers of soldiers gathered at the mayor's residence. Zhao Fu sensed this and immediately gave the order for Sun Xiaowei to carry out the next plan. Immediately. Chapter 190. Since ancient times, those who won the hearts of the people would rule the world. It could be said that the hearts of the people were incredibly important to any lord. Zhang Hong's 3,500 soldiers weren't simple at all, and Zhao Fu and his 1,000 soldiers would have to face off against 3 of them. Zhao Fu's situation was quite disadvantageous, so Zhao Fu decided to use the power of the masses in hopes of suppressing Zhang Hong. At the same time, he threw all the dirty water onto Zhang Hong. In actuality, even Zhao Fu couldn't determine whether or not Zhang Hong was responsible for Lu Ming's death. However, he was trying to turn Zhang Hong into an unforgivably evil scum. Only by doing this would he be able to incite the masses to join his side and overthrow Zhang Hong's position as mayor. The commotion in Mountain Willow Town had already woken up countless people, and now that these sounds had been heard, countless residents came out. Seeing Lu Subai's pitiful and tearful appearance, many people angrily joined Zhao Fu's army. More and more people gathered on Zhao Fu's side, and it seemed as if a single spark could start a prairie fire. They rushed towards the mayor's residence, and the 2 sides quickly clashed. On one side, Zhang Hong had a large number of soldiers and a small portion of the residents, while on the other side, Zhao Fu had most of the residents and 1,000 soldiers. "Who are you?" Zhang Hong coldly stared at the person next to Lu Subai. The black-cloaked figure said. He knew that Lu Subai had only escaped for a few days, and it was impossible for her to gather so many people to attack Mountain Willow Town. There was only one possibility, which was that person by her side. After all, these people seemed to obey his orders. However, after staying in Mountain Willow Town for so long, Zhang Hong had never heard of such a person before. "Who I am isn't important. I heard that a murderer like you appeared in Mountain Willow Town, and that you even killed his family. I was furious, so I decided to help Big Miss Lu reclaim Mountain Willow Town and get rid of you." At this moment, Zhao Fu had to stand on the side of justice and receive the support of the majority of the residents. He would also label Zhang Hong as evil. Humph! Zhang Hong coldly harumphed. He didn't believe Zhao Fu's nonsense at all. What idiot would go to such great lengths to do such a thing, and not ask for any benefits at all? It was possible that the other side had their eyes on Mountain Willow Town. At least, that was what Zhang Hong thought. Dog's leftovers. Hurry up and come over here. Don't help that Zhang Hong. You won't have a good ending if you follow him. Just as Zhang Hong was about to say something, an old European voice sounded from the opposite side. That's right, Zhao Fu was playing the emotional card again. When comparing residents and soldiers, the soldiers would definitely be stronger. This was because soldiers had classes, equipment, skills, combat experience, and various other buffs. As such, soldiers would definitely be stronger than residents. At this moment, Zhao Fu used his emotions again. The soldiers on Zhang Hong's side looked at the people on the other side. They were from the same town and often met each other. There were even relatives and friends on the other side. If Zhao Fu wanted to kill them, he would definitely be able to do it. The hearts of many soldiers also wavered. They seemed to want to jump to Zhao Fu's side. Yeah. Old Li's son, don't do evil over there. Big bro. Come over here. Don't follow those people. Husband. I also think that you should come over here. Zhao Fu once again threw out a bunch of emotional cards, which were quite despicable. Facing so many friends and family members, many of the soldiers looked as if they wanted to surrender to Zhao Fu. Seeing this, Zhang Hong was furious and exploded out with the power of a Stage 2 expert, which weighed down on everyone's bodies. Let's see who dares to go over. This massive aura caused many of the soldiers who wanted to join Zhao Fu's side to freeze. Zhang Hong lived up to his reputation as the strongest expert in Mountain Willow Town, and he was able to instantly suppress everyone. Under Zhang Hong's powerful aura, everyone started to feel incredibly nervous, and many of them even looked terrified. They felt that Zhang Hong was undefeatable. Zhao Fu's side's aura completely weakened, and their expressions became quite unsightly. However, at that moment, an aura that was not any weaker than Zhang Hong's, and was even slightly stronger than Zhang Hong's, exploded out, clashing with Zhang Hong. Don't worry, everyone. I'll definitely kill Zhang Hong. Everyone's gazes once again fell on the black-cloaked figure's body, and cheers sounded out as if they were looking at a hero. Sun Xiaowei let out a sigh of relief. He had never thought that Zhao Fu would be so powerful to be able to face off against Mountain Willow Town's #1 expert. Zhang Hong looked at Zhao Fu and revealed an eerie killing intent. His body disappeared like a bolt of lightning as he charged towards Zhao Fu's side. He understood that if he didn't deal with Zhao Fu first, he wouldn't be able to suppress this battle. Zhao Fu also understood this, and he drew his sword to meet Zhang Hong. Following this, Zhang Hong and Zhao Fu began to fight. Even though many of Zhang Hong's people had joined Zhao Fu's side, many of Zhang Hong's subordinates were also loyal to him. As such, an intense battle erupted between the two sides. Zhang Hong's sword gave off an eerie and cold sword light as it stabbed towards Zhao Fu's throat. Zhao Fu dodged to the side, avoiding this attack. Following this, Zhang Hong's sword moved to the side, and Zhao Fu could only use his sword to block Zhang Hong's attack. However, Zhang Hong's body suddenly spun as he used a roundhouse kick. This roundhouse kick was incredibly ferocious, and a muffled sound rang out as Zhao Fu clenched his fist and punched out with all of his strength. Bang! An explosion sounded out as Zhao Fu and Zhang Hong both retreated 2 steps. Zhao Fu hadn't expected that Zhang Hong would be so powerful, and Zhang Hong hadn't expected Zhao Fu to be so powerful. With his strength, he could be said to be the strongest in the surrounding 100 kilometers, and he hadn't expected that a person like Zhao Fu would suddenly appear. Both of their expressions became serious, and they once again started to fight. Zhao Fu ferociously slashed towards Zhang Hong. Zhang Hong dodged to the side, the sword in his hand, from the bottom up, flicked upwards. The tip of his sword viciously stabbed towards Zhao Fu's eyes. This attack was simply too crafty, and Zhao Fu retreated, narrowly dodging this attack. Suddenly, Zhang Hong rushed forwards, and his sword gave off a large amount of gray sword light as he ferociously stabbed towards Zhao Fu's chest. Zhao Fu coldly harumphed and used the Sky Demon Slash. A sharp black sword chi slashed out, colliding with Zhang Hong's sword. Another explosion sounded out as sword light flew everywhere, and the terrifying shockwaves made it so that no one dared to get close. Malicious Ghost Seizing Soul. After exchanging a few blows, Zhang Hong was already at a disadvantage, and he could only explode out with his most powerful attack. Countless traces of cold gray aura exploded out from his body as he slashed out with his sword. A ferocious-looking malicious ghost appeared, and it moved as fast as a ray of light as it attacked Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu slowly raised the Sky Demon Sword, which was giving off a large amount of demonic chi, and pointed it towards the malicious ghost as he used the Sky Demon Devour Soul. A demonic image shot out to meet the malicious ghost. Pooh! The malicious ghost was torn apart by the demonic image's sharp claws, and Zhang Hong coughed up a mouthful of blood. Zhao Fu grasped this opportunity and rushed forwards as fast as a phantom, stabbing his sword into Zhang Hong's chest before twisting it, destroying his internal organs and killing Zhang Hong. Chapter 191. After the battle, everyone celebrated their victory. Lu Subai gratefully walked over and bowed to Zhao Fu, saying, "Thank you, sir, for taking revenge." Zhao Fu was quite happy that he had obtained a town so easily. When he heard Lu Subai's words, he lightly laughed and replied, "It's nothing." Lu Subai looked quite surprised when she saw Zhao Fu's smile. Because of the dangerous aura that Zhao Fu gave off, this smile caused Lu Subai to not be as afraid of Zhao Fu as she had been before. Following this, Lu Subai smiled, turned around and said in a loud voice, "Sir, you're not only my savior, but you've also helped me take back Mountain Willow Town and take revenge for me. I'm unable to repay you, so I'm willing to give up my position as mayor to you." This was to give Zhao Fu the position of mayor of Mountain Willow Town. However, some people supported this while others opposed it. After all, to Mountain Willow Town, Zhao Fu was just an outsider. Even though Zhao Fu had helped them before, giving him the entire town was a bit too much. Sun Xiaowei didn't know that Lu Subai had signed a contract with Zhao Fu, so he walked up and tried to persuade Lu Subai. Even though Zhao Fu was very powerful and capable, he was only loyal to the Lu family. In his heart, Zhao Fu was the best candidate for the position of deputy mayor. No need. Mountain Willow Town will still belong to the Lu family, and the position of mayor will be inherited by the eldest daughter of the Lu family, Lu Subai. Suddenly, Zhao Fu's voice wasn't very loud, but it was very clear. These words caused countless people to feel quite confused, but Zhao Fu didn't reply to them. Instead, he turned and entered the mayor's residence and chose to conquer it, making Mountain Willow Town a subordinate town. Immediately, a black dragon inscription light covered the entirety of Mountain Willow Town, and Qin's information entered everyone's minds. Everyone was dumbfounded, and only now did they realize that Zhao Fu's true identity was that of a king. After Zhao Fu conquered the town, he did not receive any achievement point. There was a prompt stating that conquering multiple times in a short period of time would not give achievement point. This was most likely because Zhang Hong had conquered it before. Following this, Zhao Fu walked out and looked at everyone's shocked expressions. Zhao Fu understood that they knew who he was, so he took off his black cloak and revealed his true appearance. He had a well-proportioned figure, black clothes, waist-length black hair, and a delicate and handsome face. He was filled with a noble and dignified aura, and countless people could not help but kneel and call out, "Your Majesty! Get up!" Looking at the people kneeling down, Zhao Fu gave a faint smile and said, "You're welcome." Everyone stood up, and before the shock on Lu Subai and Sun Xiaowei's faces had faded, Zhao Fu's gaze fell on them as he said, "Lu Subai, you're the mayor of Mountain Willow Town, and Sun Xiaowei is the commander of Mountain Willow Town. Don't disappoint me." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, as well as the system announcements in their minds, the two of them came back to their senses and respectfully bowed to Zhao Fu. No wonder Zhao Fu didn't want the position of mayor. He had long since become a king. Of course, he didn't want the position of mayor. Following this, the two of them began to calculate the results of the battle. Zhao Fu looked at Zhang Hong's corpse and found that it was SS grade, so he put it into his king's ring. Zhang Hong also had a spatial ring, and Zhao Fu looked at it with interest. He found that there were only some coins and some other items, making Zhao Fu feel slightly disappointed. "Your Majesty, don't tire yourself. This lowly one's here to serve you." The bandit from before, Dong Sun, had thought that he had found a powerful backer, but after finding out who Zhao Fu was, he realized that he had found a powerful backer. As such, he immediately ran over with a smile on his face. Zhao Fu glanced at him and didn't refuse. "Di ha!" Little Shah appeared next to Zhao Fu, covered with blood. He had just learned how to speak, so he couldn't speak very clearly, but he could understand what Zhao Fu was saying. Hearing this, Zhao Fu looked down at Little Shah. His face was covered with blood, and with his ferocious expression, he looked quite terrifying. Of course, this blood wasn't his. He had killed many people just then, and it was all other people's blood. At the same time, Little Shah's aura of slaughter became even stronger. The kill equipment set inherited the power of slaughter, and it could increase one's strength through slaughter. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand and stroked his little head as he smiled and said, "Go and have a good bath. Someone will prepare a bunch of delicious food for you and new clothes for you." Little Shah raised his head and looked at Zhao Fu, who was rubbing his head. For the first time, a strange emotion appeared in his heart, causing his ferocious expression to soften. He stiffly smiled. He knew that he was very happy, but he did not know how to smile. Zhao Fu turned to look at Dong Sun. Zhao Fu's meaning was quite clear. He wanted Dong Sun to take care of Little Shah. Dong Sun could only stiffly smile. Dong Sun was incredibly afraid of Little Shah, and even though he didn't want to, he had to do it. As such, he nodded and left with Little Shah. Elsewhere, Sun Xiaowei had finished tabulating the results of the battle. Now that the entirety of Mountain Willow Town had submitted, it was time to look at the losses that Mountain Willow Town had suffered. Before, Mountain Willow Town had a population of 23,000 or so. Now, there were only around 20,000 or so people left. Out of the 4,000 or so soldiers, only around 2,500 or so remained. Even though most of the people who had died were on Zhang Hong's side, Zhao Fu's side had also lost a few hundred people. As for the other items and spoils of war, they didn't need to be tabulated, as they all belonged to Mountain Willow Town. This was a small blow to Mountain Willow Town, and it would take some time to recover. Now, it was time to clean up the battlefield and comfort the families of those who had died. Following this, Mountain Willow Town returned to normal. A few days later, Zhao Fu saw that Mountain Willow Town had completely stabilized, and there wouldn't be any more accident. Zhao Fu had relocated the Lone Wolf Village, put away the city creation stone, and incorporated the bandits into Mountain Willow Town. By now, Zhao Fu planned to return to Qin City. He had been gone for half a month, and Zhao Fu missed Qin City quite a bit. Zhao Fu decided to take Little Shah with him. At that moment, Little Shah had changed into his own clothes. His face had also become white and clean. Compared to before, there was an enormous difference between him and his previous appearance. "Your Majesty, you should come back to Mountain Willow Town more often," Lu Subai said as she smiled at Zhao Fu. Even though she hadn't known Zhao Fu for very long, she was still quite reluctant to see Zhao Fu leave. Zhao Fu nodded and used the teleportation channel to teleport away. Zhao Fu and Little Shah's figures blurred as they disappeared and reappeared within a system main city. They then used the teleportation channel to return to the village that had been the teleportation point. Chapter 192. Zhao Fu and Little Sha continued to use the teleportation channel, and their bodies flashed as they disappeared. After using the teleportation channel many times, Zhao Fu and Little Sha's figures finally appeared on the teleportation channel in Qin Town. When the guards next to the teleportation channel saw Zhao Fu return to Qin Town, they were pleasantly surprised and saluted before calling out, "Your Highness." Zhao Fu nodded and walked out of the teleportation channel. The news that Zhao Fu had returned to Qin Town was like a stone falling into a calm lake, causing ripples to appear. Suddenly, Qin Town became lively, and the higher-ups rushed over. After walking out of the teleportation channel, Zhao Fu felt that something was wrong. The atmosphere in Qin Town seemed to be filled with tension and oppression, causing Zhao Fu to frown. Zhao Fu lowered his head and patted his clothes, waking up the 3 flower spirits who were sleeping soundly in his clothes. The 3 flower spirits woke up and crawled out of Zhao Fu's clothes. They looked around curiously and found that it was just as Zhao Fu had said. The place was filled with flowers. At the same time, they were attracted to this place, and they liked Qin Town very much. They happily flew around and looked around. Seeing this, Zhao Fu smiled. "Your Highness." At this moment, Bai Qi led a group of people to the teleportation channel. When they saw that Zhao Fu had returned, they all called out in delight. Zhao Fu looked at the group of people walking over, and there were a few unfamiliar faces among them. Soon, the group of people came to the hall. Zhao Fu sat on the main seat and listened to Bai Qi and Li Si's reports. "What happened while I was away in Qin Town?" After listening, Zhao Fu didn't say anything. He just sat there and sank into his thoughts. The people below became nervous, and the hall was very quiet. No one dared to make a sound. Imperial system? War? Based on the current situation, it was indeed very suitable for Qin, and it could also make Qin develop rapidly. During the time when Zhao Fu was absent, Qin's development was amazing. Now, Qin City's territory had expanded several times, and everything within a radius of 400 miles was under Qin City's control. The population had also increased. Now, Qin City's population had reached 100,000, and the number of soldiers had reached 20,000. Its strength had greatly increased. This result made it impossible for Zhao Fu to oppose the imperial system. Moreover, the Qin Empire must have the imperial system, because what Zhao Fu restored was the Qin Empire, not the system of a country in the real world. But this was the problem that troubled Zhao Fu the most. On the one hand, a full-scale war would bring amazing results, and it was the most suitable for Qin's current situation. This was a very rational decision, but Zhao Fu's ideal was not to completely turn Qin into a cold machine. When he returned to Qin City, the pervasive sense of depression and tension made Zhao Fu very uncomfortable. Zhao Fu wanted to turn Qin City into a person with all kinds of emotions, laughter, and a sense of happiness and stability in people's lives. This was the best embodiment of a country, not a cold killing machine. Now, Zhao Fu was facing the opposition of ideal and dream. Ideal was to understand reality rationally, and to make ideas according to one's own ability. Dream was like a dream, beautiful but unreal. Both have their own advantages, but they also have their own shortcomings. After thinking for a long time, Zhao Fu decided to take a step back and support a full-scale war. Although this would slow down the development of Qin City, Zhao Fu thought it was worth it, because they were all his people and they were paying for Qin City. Zhao Fu wanted to give them some time to relax their tense nerves and let them feel a bit of happiness. After all, this was the best way to develop. After coming back to his senses, Zhao Fu looked at Bai Qi with a calm face. Bai Qi suddenly felt an inexplicable pressure, and he became nervous. A little cold sweat appeared on his forehead, and he cupped his fists and apologized. "Your Highness, this time I acted on my own initiative. Please punish me." Hearing this, the others were shocked. Although Bai Qi did it for the good of Qin City, His behavior has overstepped his authority and overstepped Zhao Fu's authority. Without his permission, he carried out a full-scale war. If this happened in ancient times, Bai Qi would be sentenced to death. Many people present didn't want to see this, and they all begged for mercy. Seeing this, Zhao Fu suddenly smiled and said to the others, "When did I say that I would punish Bai Qi? Although Bai Qi acted on his own initiative, I stayed in East Green. Moreover, Bai Qi's methods were quite effective, and Qin City has indeed developed very quickly." Hearing this, everyone let out a sigh of relief. At this moment, Zhao Fu said, "However, I feel that there are some areas that need to be improved. While Qin City needs to develop, the people are also very important." After Zhao Fu spoke his thoughts, everyone looked delighted, and they started to discuss how to improve this system. Following this, orders were given out, causing the haze above Great Qin to be swept away. It was as if the clouds had parted to reveal the clear sky. Many people relaxed and smiled, feeling that it was good that His Majesty had returned. After discussing these matters, Zhao Fu looked at a few unfamiliar faces. Some of them had performed well on the battlefield and had been promoted to generals. One of them, a gray-clothed young man, was quite special. Even though he looked quite ordinary, he gave off a calm and steady aura. He seemed to be someone behind the scenes. He reminded Zhao Fu of a historical figure that had awakened when Qin City had become an intermediate town. Back then, Zhao Fu didn't know who it was, but now, he knew that it was this person in front of him. Name, Wei Liao. Grade, SSS. Title, Profession, General. Achievement Points, Commoner 0 out of 100. Race, Human. Age, 26. 100. Loyalty, 100. Stats, Strength, 10. Intelligence, 10. Constitution, 10. Agility, 10. Cultivation, Stage 0. Cultivation Technique, Qin City. Inner Cultivation Technique Skills, None. Equipment, Gray Robe. Wei Liao? When Zhao Fu saw his name, he recalled the information about him in his mind. Wei Liao was a figure during Qin Shi Huang's reign, and he made great contributions to Qin's unification. Of course, his abilities were extraordinary as well. Emperor Qin thought highly of him and even ate and lived with him. That was to say, they ate the same food and lived in the same place. Compared to Wang Jian and Meng Kuo, Wei Liao's contributions were not in leading troops into battle but in controlling the overall situation. He was the type of person who manipulated things from behind the scenes, and he wasn't as famous as Wang Jian and Meng Kuo. Chapter 193. Zhao Fu was quite happy that Qin City had gained another general, and after discussing for a while, they ended the conversation. Zhao Fu then went to Qin City's city heart. When Qin City had become an intermediate town, Zhao Fu had not looked at its stats, and now was the time. Village name, Qin Town. Legendary level, Elementary Village area, 100 square kilometers. Village territory, 2,180 square kilometers. Popular support, 85 special stats. Territory crop output plus 80%, territory crop growth time minus 80%, population limit plus 60%, residence stats plus 5, soldiers stats plus 6%, population attraction plus 70%, high-grade attraction plus 70%. Subsidiary village limit, 142 subsidiary villages. Logue Village, Jean Village, Doran Village, Li Family Village, Wolf Village, Ferocious Tiger Village. The stats had not increased by much, and they were the same as before. There were now 5 more generals, and the total resistance to natural disasters was 70%. The Heaven Prayer Platform's resistance to natural disasters was 60%, and the Earth Temple's development was quite good. Many residents went to pray, and the Earth Temple had become a Level 1 Earth Temple. Level 1 Earth Temple contains a trace of godly power that can protect a piece of land. The more incense there is, the more the Earth Temple's level and stats will increase. Current stats: Crop growth time minus 20%, crop output plus 20%, resistance to natural disasters plus 10%. System announcement. Your city's stats. Crop growth time minus 100% has reached its maximum value. Normal crop's growth time will be reduced to its base value, and stage 1 and above spirit plants' growth time will be reduced according to their levels. This was the city's stats and the Earth Temple stats. The crop growth time had reached 100%, and if Zhao Fu planted the crops, they would mature in a few seconds. However, this was not the case. Every crop had a base growth time, and this was the city's special stat. The crops that Zhao Fu planted now had a base growth time of 12 days, and they would mature every 12 days. In the future, when Zhao Fu's city's stats leveled up and increased the crop growth time, it would not be effective for crops no matter how much it was increased. Because Zhao Fu's food had been reduced to its basic growth value, in the future, Zhao Fu's food would basically mature in 12 days. There would not be any changes. 12 days would still be 12 days, unless it was affected by a natural disaster. However, it didn't mean that it was useless. Although it didn't have any effect on basic crops like grains, it was still effective on spirit plants that were grade 1 and above. As long as it was a spirit plant, it would have a different time calculation. Now that the 3 flower spirits had joined, Zhao Fu would be able to harvest large amounts of spirit grasses. The 100 origin grass from before would also quickly be used to refine pills. After dealing with many things, Zhao Fu walked around Qin Town and looked at the changes in Qin Town while he was away, which surprised Zhao Fu. Finally, he came to the other side of the nest and looked at Little Black and the other 2. The 3 of them had been playing around, but seeing Zhao Fu, who they had not seen in a long time, they immediately ran over to him and affectionately hugged him. Zhao Fu smiled and rubbed their heads and played with them for a while. After looking at the 3 of them, Zhao Fu called Bai Qi, Wang Jian, and Wei Liao, the 3 most important generals of Qin Town, and they headed to North Vietnam. North Vietnam was a place, and after so long, Qin Town had finally opened up a path to Vietnam. North Vietnam was the border region between China and Vietnam. Not only were there Vietnamese people here, but there were also Chinese people. Because of its special location, some of the residents here could speak Vietnamese and some could speak Chinese. There were 2 cultures here, and it looked like a border region in the real world. The reason Zhao Fu had called Bai Qi and the other 2 was to prepare for conquering Vietnam in the future. From the beginning, Zhao Fu had said that he was going to jump out of China and use Vietnam as a stepping stone to conquer all of China. Bai Qi and the other 2 were all famous generals in history, and their foresight was greater than Zhao Fu's. Zhao Fu had called them over to see for themselves if they had any suggestions. The 4 of them put on black cloaks and used teleportation channels many times to reach North Vietnam. This time, Zhao Fu and the others went to Emptiness City. North Vietnam also had 4 system main cities: Cowtooth City, Ancient House City, Emptiness City, and Great Saber City. Of these 4 system main cities, the first 2 were controlled by the Vietnamese indigenous residents, while the last 2 were controlled by the Chinese indigenous resident. Border regions had always been quite chaotic, and there were all sorts of conflicts between races, cultures, and customs, causing border regions to be quite chaotic. What's more, the countries around China hated China for many reasons, but the biggest one was history. In ancient times, the countries around China had all submitted to China, and they were unwilling to accept this. They mocked the Chinese people for being so arrogant, so they often did things to provoke them. However, ever since Zhao Fu had obtained the Chinese people and let out that domineering dragon's roar, the surrounding countries had become much more obedient. However, there were still countless conflicts, big and small. Zhao Fu and the others first went to Emptiness City to observe the situation in China before going to the Vietnamese system main cities to take a look. They found that both sides were doing and talking about things as if they were opposing factions. What made Zhao Fu even more surprised was that even though North Vietnam's four-system main cities didn't directly participate in the battle, they had set up camps. Anyone who killed a Chinese person or a Vietnamese person would receive 1 faction point. Faction points had the same effects as city achievement points, and they could be exchanged for all sorts of items. However, they could only be obtained by killing players. 1 faction point could be exchanged for 10 silver coins, which was equivalent to 1,000 copper coins. In the real world, that would be $10,000, which was quite a good profit. This caused all of North Vietnam's people to become incredibly ferocious. At the same time, the system main cities didn't restrict the use of teleportation channels, so the Vietnamese people could come here and the Chinese people could also go there. However, the governmental factions didn't seem to care about the battles between the two sides. Back then, when Zhao Fu had used the teleportation channel to go to the Vietnamese side, 10 or so people had set their eyes on Zhao Fu and the others, and they had openly attacked. In the end, those 10 or so people were easily killed by Bai Qi, and their corpses lay there. Chapter 194. Zhao Fu had long since read on the forum that border regions were incredibly chaotic and cruel. Only after seeing it for himself did he understand what it was like. Seeing that the two sides were like fire and water, Zhao Fu thought to himself. He wondered who had said that a place where there was war meant that there would be massive wealth. Zhao Fu took out his map and found that there were 10 or so border regions between Vietnam and China. North Nam was connected to 6 other regions, and there were a few other regions that were in different places. North Nam, along with the other 6 regions, was the region that had the most contact with China, and Zhao Fu planned to focus his business there. Zhao Fu not only wanted to make huge profits here, but he also wanted to establish slavery and use a large amount of money to buy more people. After all, Zhao Fu's money would increase as he developed more and more regions, and he would not have to worry about not having enough money to spend. Zhao Fu told Bai Qi and the others to go back and discuss his plans for Vietnam, while Zhao Fu stayed here and continued to buy property and open restaurants. However, right now, he could only open restaurants in China. If he went to Vietnam, he would most likely be destroyed, so he decided not to go there for now. Apart from doing these things, Zhao Fu also went to the Vietnamese side to look for people. Zhao Fu had long since wanted to establish a player faction, and it was time to do so. As a Chinese person, Zhao Fu could not develop in the Vietnamese side. However, if he wanted to take down Vietnam, he had to send people in and gather information. However, apart from a few people who wanted to kill him, he did not find anyone useful. Zhao Fu realized how difficult it was to establish a player faction. First, he had to find people who were loyal to him and had to be capable. Moreover, he had to keep their identities a secret. Once their identities were exposed, no matter how powerful they were in the Heaven Awakened world, they would still be easily killed in the real world. When he thought about that, Zhao Fu decided to give up on establishing a player faction. Instead, he decided to make the core of the faction be made up of indigenous residents and a large number of players. With this, it would be much easier to establish a player faction. There were many benefits to establishing a player faction. Firstly, it would be easier to gather information. Secondly, it would be easier to gather players in large numbers. Thirdly, players wouldn't truly die. These were the biggest advantages players had. After thinking things through, Zhao Fu set his gaze on a rather good-looking Vietnamese woman and dragged her into an alleyway when she wasn't paying attention. This woman was an indigenous resident, and she had been in a good mood as she walked on the road when a black figure suddenly grabbed her and dragged her into an alley. Immediately, she was so scared that her face turned pale. She thought that Zhao Fu was going to do something to her, so she struggled with all her might and wanted to shout for help. However, just as she was about to open her mouth, he covered her mouth, and then she was taken to a hidden corner without any resistance. Drops of tears flowed from her eyes. She already knew what was going to happen next. She didn't expect that the innocence she had kept for 20 years would be gone today. She was going to be tarnished by this pervert. Thinking about it, her tears flowed more and more. At that moment, she heard the man say something that she couldn't understand. It was Chinese, and she understood that Zhao Fu was an otherworlder. Following this, he handed her a contract. Looking at this contract, her heart became cold. It wasn't enough for this person to tarnish me once. He wanted to control my life and death. If he tarnished me for a long time, I'd be better off dead. I won't agree to this. If you have the ability, kill me. Her gaze was resolute as she spoke in Vietnamese, intending to preserve her innocence. She couldn't let this pervert have his way. But just as she finished speaking, a hand grabbed her neck and lifted her up. Immediately, she instantly felt a suffocating feeling, and she struggled as if she was dying. Feeling that cold gaze, she started to feel terror, and her body started to tremble. The aura of death slowly entered her mind, and she couldn't breathe anymore. Her consciousness gradually became hazy, and she felt that she had already stepped into death's door. Was she really going to die? At the last moment, she became afraid and chose to submit. Following this, that person let go of her, and she fell to the ground. She sucked in large mouthfuls of fresh air, and only after a while did she catch her breath. At that moment, that person handed over the contract again. She looked at it and could only mournfully sign it, and the contract turned into motes of light and entered her body. She had completely resigned herself to her fate and was about to take off her clothes to be tarnished by this beast. Suddenly, a voice sounded out from beside her, "What's your name?" Even though she couldn't understand what that person was saying, she understood what he was saying, and she said in a low voice, "My name is Lai Qinqian." Looking at how pitiful she looked, Zhao Fu felt that he had gone too far, so he felt quite apologetic and said, "Don't worry. Now that you've submitted to me, I definitely won't mistreat you in the future." Lai Qinqian heard Zhao Fu's words. Now that she had signed the contract, she was now his, so hearing that he would treat her well in the future, she let out a sigh of relief. "Get up. I'll take you back," Zhao Fu said as he stretched out a hand towards Lai Qinqian. Lai Qinqian looked around and found that this was indeed not a good place to do such things. It would be bad if they were discovered, so Zhao Fu told her to go back and do it. Lai Qinqian nodded, grabbed Zhao Fu's outstretched hand, and stood up. Following this, she followed him through many teleportation channels and arrived at a beautiful place. There were flowers everywhere, and there was a faint fragrance in the air. "Your Majesty! Your Majesty! Your Majesty!" At that moment, she heard the people around her calling out to him respectfully. She couldn't understand Chinese, but she could tell that he had a noble identity. Zhao Fu slowly took off his cloak, and she saw what he looked like. He had a delicate and handsome face, and he gave off a noble and dignified aura, making it so that no one dared to look at him directly. She lowered her head, not daring to look up. At the same time, she felt quite confused. With such a noble identity, why would he do such a thing to himself? She followed him all the way to a very remote area. "Is this the place?" Lai Qinqian looked around. Even though there was no one around, it was quite spacious, and her face became red as she said shyly, "Sir, can we find a small forest?" Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and said, "A small forest isn't suitable. I think this is a good place." Lai Qinqian's face became bright red, and she felt that this sir was quite perverted. However, she already belonged to him, so she would do whatever he wanted her to do. Just as she was about to take off her clothes, here. Chapter 195. Seeing the city creation stone in Zhao Fu's hand, Lai Qinqian looked quite surprised. Of course, she knew how valuable these things were. Every city creation stone could be sold for a high price on the market, and the one in Zhao Fu's hand was a blue-grade one. He said that he wouldn't mistreat her, but who would have thought that he would give her something so valuable so quickly? Lai Qingqian's hatred towards Zhao Fu had greatly decreased, and she hoped that he would treat her well in the future. She then stretched out her hand to take off her clothes. "What is it? Hurry up and use it," Zhao Fu said as he looked at Lai Qingqian in confusion. Hearing this, Lai Qingqian looked quite confused, not understanding what Zhao Fu meant. Seeing this, Zhao Fu said helplessly, "Use the city creation stone." Lai Qingqian immediately understood, and she squatted down and pressed the city creation stone against the ground. The city creation stone fused into the ground, and a blue wave of light rippled out as a few city creation images appeared. "This village is yours now. If you want to manage it, then do so. If not, leave it to someone else." After saying this, Zhao Fu turned and left. Lai Qingqian stood there, dumbfounded. She had never thought that things would end just like that. Zhao Fu hadn't done anything to her at all, and seeing that she hadn't taken off her clothes yet, she felt that she had misunderstood something. After returning to Qin Town, Zhao Fu called Bai Qi and the others over to listen to their plans for Vietnam. As for Lai Qingqian's village, it could be put to use once the population was refreshed. Half a day passed and Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and the others concluded their discussion. They had come up with a basic strategy for Vietnam, and Zhao Fu's businesses slowly entered North Nam to prepare for the introduction of slavery. Suddenly, Zhao Fu seemed to have forgotten something, and he remembered that he had 2 corpses that he hadn't refined yet. One was Gu Feng's SSS grade corpse, and the other was Zhang Hong's SS grade corpse. If he refined them, he would be able to obtain an SSS grade orb and an SS grade orb. Right now, most of the generals under Zhao Fu's command were S grade, and he did not have anyone to promote yet. As such, it would be quite difficult to choose someone for these 2 grade orbs. However, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided to give the SSS grade orb to Xiao Jian. While Zhao Fu wasn't around, Xiao Jian had performed extremely well. Just his team alone had brought back 20,000 or so people, and even Bai Qi had put in a good word for him in front of Zhao Fu. As for the remaining SS grade orb, Zhao Fu did not have a suitable candidate in mind. He planned to place it in the battlefield rewards to stimulate the soldiers' enthusiasm. Bringing the 2 corpses with him, Zhao Fu arrived at the underground space of bones. Nothing had changed here, it was still the same, empty and gloomy. Zhao Fu first placed Gufeng's corpse on the magic formation, then activated it. Suddenly, a large, formless hand grabbed Gufeng's corpse, and the 30 or so energy stones on the stone trough turned into dust. A formless energy covered the corpse, and Gufeng's flesh and blood started to melt, revealing his white bones. Finally, Gufeng's flesh and blood were completely refined, and the formless energy disappeared. Gufeng's corpse turned into a pile of useless bones and fell to the ground. What surprised Zhao Fu was that apart from a grade orb floating in the air, there was also a blood-red pill that gave off a faint light. "What is this?" Zhao Fu walked over and caught the blood-red pill. This blood-red pill was as big as a longan fruit and gave off a faint blood-red light, as if it was made of blood. It also gave off a pungent smell of blood. Blood God Pill, Grade. Stage 3 Description: a medicinal pill refined from a Stage 3 corp. It contains a large amount of cultivation power, and after using it, it can greatly increase one's cultivation. However, it is limited to Stage 2 cultivators, and can only be used once. Zhao Fu had never thought that refining corpses would give him a blood god pill. What's more, the blood god pill's description told him that it could greatly increase one's cultivation. Zhao Fu couldn't help but feel excited. He suddenly thought of something and quickly placed Zhang Hong's corpse on the stone trough. Following this, he activated the magic formation. The 20 or so energy stones on the stone trough also turned into dust, and a formless energy covered Zhang Hong's corpse. Apart from a grade orb, there was also a blood god pill. Blood god pill, grade. Stage 2 description. A medicinal pill refined from a stage 2 corpse. It contains a large amount of cultivation power, and after using it, it can greatly increase one's cultivation. However, it is limited to stage 1 cultivators, and can only be used once. This was a stage 2 medicinal pill, and because it was refined from a stage 2 corpse, it was roughly the same as the stage 3 blood god pill. However, the restrictions were slightly different. Stage 3 blood god pills could only be used by stage 2 cultivators, while stage 2 blood god pills could only be used by stage 1 cultivators. Each stage could only be used once. Just as he had expected, refining corpses with high cultivation would yield blood god pills. What about people with stage 1 cultivation? Zhao Fu excitedly ran to Battle City, and in order to verify his suspicions, Zhao Fu had brought back a few stage 1 corpses. Because Battle City was a coliseum, it was quite easy to obtain corpses. Zhao Fu threw the stage 1 corpses into the refining formation, and as expected, he obtained stage 1 blood god pills. Stage 1 blood god pills could only be used by those with stage 0 cultivation, and they could only be used once. Now that he had confirmed this, Zhao Fu couldn't help but loudly laugh. He had greatly underestimated the heaven and earth refining formation as expected from a heaven-defying magic formation. Now that he had these blood god pills, Zhao Fu didn't have to worry about not having high-stage soldiers. He would be able to nurture a large number of high-stage soldiers and sweep across the world. Who would be able to stop him then? Ha ha ha! Zhao Fu was unable to express the joy in his heart, and he could only loudly laugh. At the same time, he was quite blind to have only just discovered this heaven-defying effect. However, he still had to test out the effects of the blood god pills. Zhao Fu happily returned to the surface and called over a few soldiers of different cultivations. These soldiers were at stage 0 to 5, stage 0 to 5, and stage 0 to 8. Zhao Fu gave each of them a stage 1 blood god pill and had them consume it. After the 3 soldiers consumed the blood god pill, they sat down cross-legged and started to cultivate, and traces of blood-red aura rose up from their bodies. Time gradually passed, and as Zhao Fu waited by the side, the soldiers' auras became more and more powerful. The first soldier to open his eyes was a soldier with a rank 0 cultivation base. His cultivation base instantly went up to rank 4. The second soldier was a soldier with a rank 5 cultivation base. His cultivation base went up to rank 8, and the last soldier went up from rank 8 to rank 1. Chapter 196. Right now, Qin only had 10 or so stage 1 soldiers, and most of them were at stage 0 to 7 or 0 to 8. With the blood god pills, Zhao Fu would be able to produce a large number of stage 1 soldiers. The most important thing right now was how to obtain a large number of stage 1 corpses. After all, the blood god pill used corpses as an ingredient, and it required a large amount of energy stones. A stage 1 corpse required 10 energy stones to refine, and 10 energy stones were equivalent to 100 gold coins. Refining 10 corpses would require 1,000 gold coins. There were 2 problems in front of Zhao Fu. First, only system main cities had stage 1 corpses, and they were not easy to obtain. You could kill system main cities' soldiers and obtain corpses, but you would not be able to establish a foothold there. Don't underestimate system main cities' power, as a massive battle might break out. Zhao Fu didn't dare to use his nation armament's power anymore, as Qin still hadn't recovered from the consequences of using it last time. Only a city like Battle City could easily obtain stage 1 corpses, but Qin City was unable to provide a large number of them. 10 corpses would cost 1,000 gold coins, and 100 corpses would cost 10,000 gold coins. Even though Zhao Fu was now quite rich, this sort of expenditure still made Zhao Fu feel quite pained. Right now, he could only wait and see if there were any opportunities. Following this, Zhao Fu went to Battle City to see Gunia, who was becoming more and more famous. Gunia's cultivation had already reached stage 0 to 8, and this was even after he had suppressed his cultivation. Right now, he could already fight against stage 1 expert. If he broke through to stage 1, he would most likely need a stage 2 expert to suppress him. However, most people with stage 2 cultivation were guardian generals, and there wouldn't be many of them in the arena. This was why Gunia suppressed his cultivation so that he could better train here. However, the duration of his training was getting shorter and shorter. Once Gunia's cultivation reached the first stage, it would mean that his training in Battle City had officially ended. After this was over, he would officially become Zhao Fu's personal bodyguard. At the same time, he would become one of the most famous people in Battle City. On the other hand, Zhao Fu found the person in charge of the arena, the burly man from before, and tossed him a large sum of money, asking him to keep the stage 1 cultivator's corpse for him. The corpses in the wrestling arena were basically useless, and they were usually dragged away to be buried. However, the big man had never thought that there would be so much money to be made. Although he wasn't sure why Zhao Fu wanted these corpses, he understood and didn't ask. He promised Zhao Fu that he would give him stage 1 corpses every day. There were roughly 20 or so stage 1 corpses in Battle City every day, and that was all they could do for now. After dealing with these matters, Zhao Fu returned to Qin Town. Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought about how his cultivation was already at stage 0 to 9 and was just a bit away from breaking through to stage 1, so he looked at the last stage 1 blood god pill. After returning to his room, Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on his bed and swallowed a blood god pill. He felt a massive wave of power spread out from his stomach, and this powerful cultivation caused Zhao Fu to quickly circulate his qi. Traces of blood-red aura rose up from Zhao Fu's body. At that moment, a formless barrier appeared in front of him, and Zhao Fu gathered his strength and broke through it. Following this, Zhao Fu's body trembled. He knew that he had broken through to stage 1. At the same time, a few system announcements sounded out in his mind. Zhao Fu ignored them for now and focused on stabilizing his cultivation. This took quite a bit of time, and only when it was midnight did Zhao Fu open his eyes and breathe out a mouthful of impure air. Zhao Fu looked at his changes and found that breaking through to stage 1 felt quite different. He felt that he was many times more powerful than before, and this wasn't because of his stats but because of his innate strength. After standing up and familiarizing himself with his new strength, Zhao Fu looked at his stats and found that they had increased. His lifespan had also increased by 10 years, and after looking at his stats, Zhao Fu looked at the system announcements. System announcement. Congratulations, you have broken through to stage 1. System announcement. Your cultivation has reached stage 1, and your king's profession has changed. You have unlocked the King's Guard profession. Zhao Fu directly ignored the first one and looked at the second one, feeling quite curious. What was the King's Guard profession? Following this, Zhao Fu started to look at it and understood what the King's Guard profession was. The King's Guard profession came from the King's profession, and it wasn't a military profession. It was a master-servant profession, and if the master was powerful, the servant would also be abnormally powerful. This was because the King's Guard profession would also obtain king's power. This king's power didn't belong to them but came from the person with the king's profession. The King's Guard profession was the king's bodyguard, and now, Zhao Fu could have 3 king's guards. Zhao Fu already had a candidate in mind, but because it was so late at night, he decided to wait until tomorrow. Moreover, right now, Zhao Fu needed to condense his king's mark. The king's mark was the symbol of a king, and it represented a king. It was usually based on a certain pattern. If there was a family, they would be called the royal clan, and the king's mark would be the emblem of the royal clan. In other words, if Zhao Fu had descendants, those descendants would belong to the royal clan, and Zhao Fu's king's mark would continue to be used. It would represent Zhao Fu's royal clan. This was quite important. Zhao Fu thought about his king's mark. What kind of pattern should he condense? After thinking about it for a while, Zhao Fu finally decided on what his king's mark should look like. First, the king's mark had to have a dragon in it. To Chinese people, dragons were not only a symbol of power, but they also represented supreme royal authority. However, if the king's mark only had a dragon, it would be too ordinary. Moreover, Zhao Fu didn't want to make a Western or sci-fi pattern, so he wanted a pattern that was suitable for China and represented the state of Qin. Zhao Fu chose to use 9 dragon inscriptions that formed a circle. At the center of the circle was a character, Qin. However, it wasn't simplified Chinese but Xiaozhuan. Xiaozhuan was the language that had been created after the state of Qin unified China. Compared to other languages, it was elegant, thin, and mysterious. Finally, the king's mark was black. After thinking about what his king's mark should look like, Zhao Fu returned to his bed and sat cross-legged. He closed his eyes and calmed himself as he used his king's power to carve in his mind. This king's mark was incredibly important, so Zhao Fu had to be very careful. He slowly carved it stroke by stroke, and with every stroke, Zhao Fu's head would ache. It was as if something was stabbing into his soul. Chapter 197. Early in the morning, the sky had just brightened, and the air was quite fresh. A few birds flew past in the sky and chirped, signaling the arrival of another day. Within a room, Zhao Fu sat cross-legged on his bed, his face pale and his body covered with cold sweat. After a while, he collapsed to the ground in exhaustion. The king's seal had finally been engraved, and this had consumed both his mind and body, causing Zhao Fu to feel incredibly tired. However, it was worth it to have successfully engraved the king's seal. After resting for a while and recovering some strength, Zhao Fu called Gunia, Tuobiqing, and Little Sha over. Very quickly, the 3 of them came to Zhao Fu's side, feeling quite confused as to why Zhao Fu had called them over. Zhao Fu briefly explained the king's guard profession to them, and after hearing Zhao Fu's words, they all had different expressions. Gunia's expression was quite serious and dignified as he stood there, as if what Zhao Fu had said was the path that he believed in and believed in. Little Sha was only 8 years old, and he looked at Zhao Fu in a confused manner. Even though he didn't understand what Zhao Fu was saying, he quite liked being able to stay by Zhao Fu's side. Little Sha's fear of Zhao Fu had long since turned into fondness. Tuobiqing's face became slightly red and felt quite shy. She was only 17 years old, and becoming Zhao Fu's king's guard meant that she would stay by Zhao Fu's side for the rest of her life. She was quite willing because she wanted to repay Zhao Fu, but she couldn't help but feel a bit shy. "Do you understand what I'm saying? If you're not willing, I won't force you," Zhao Fu said as he looked at the 3 people in front of him. The 3 of them earnestly replied, "We're willing to serve His Majesty." Following this, the 3 of them half knelt on the ground and closed their eyes as they raised their heads and looked at Zhao Fu. Seeing that they had agreed, Zhao Fu took out a dagger and cut open his palm, causing bright red blood to slowly flow out. Zhao Fu raised his palm towards them and lightly cried out, "King's Guards!" The blood flowing out of Zhao Fu's palm turned into 3 orbs of blood that were as big as fingernails and shot towards the 3 people's foreheads. The orbs of blood fused into their foreheads, and in an instant, a black diagram appeared on their foreheads. This diagram was made of 9 dragon inscriptions, and there was a Qin character at the center. It gave off a mysterious and domineering aura, and it also gave off a dignified aura. After this image appeared, it gave off a black light, causing the 3 people's bodies to tremble. Following this, the black light contained King's power and started to enter their bodies. Following this, the King's Chin, the King's King, and Stage's King's body, the Kings, the King, the Black, the King, and this, and the King there. And they, and. Now they were King's guards, and they could use King's power. Although this King's power was a bit weaker than normal King's power, it was still a very powerful power. After having the three of them become King's guards, Zhao Fu felt quite tired. The fatigue from carving the King's seal came back to him, and he could only have them leave for now. Zhao Fu lay on his bed and slept. By the time he woke up, it was night time. After a good night's sleep, his body felt much more relaxed. His cultivation was now at stage 1, and thinking about how he still had a stage 2 blood god pill, Zhao Fu swallowed a stage 2 blood spirit pill. The next day, Zhao Fu once again opened his eyes. By now, his cultivation had reached stage 1 to 4, which was unimaginably fast. Zhao Fu left his room with a look of delight on his face, and decided to go to Holy Light City to ask He Xianru some questions. He wanted to know how to get rid of the azure energy in his body, and he also wanted to ask her what the Phoenix Dragon Constitution was. Zhao Fu felt that He Xianru knew more than him about certain things, so he decided to go and ask her for some advice. However, just as Zhao Fu used the teleportation channel to enter Holy Light City, he found that there seemed to be a festival going on. There were many people wearing ghost masks and playing on the street. At the same time, there were many people selling talismans, peachwood swords, bells, black dog blood, and other items that could ward off evil. After asking around, Zhao Fu found out that this festival was called the Ghost Festival. The Ghost Festival was also called the Hungry Ghost Festival, or the Hungry Ghost Festival. It was said that during this festival, the gates of hell would open, and countless ghosts would come out. Tens of thousands of ghosts would wreak havoc, and killing them would drop ghost crystals. Just like the 10,000 Flower Festival's flower tears, ghost crystals could be exchanged for ghost crystal points, which could also be exchanged for countless items. The Ghost Festival lasted for 7 days, and it would officially start at midnight. However, compared to the 10,000 Flower Festival, the Ghost Festival wasn't an event that everyone could attend. The ghosts that appeared during the Ghost Festival would attack people, and if anyone encountered some malicious ghosts, they would be doomed. The 10,000 Flower Festival wasn't too dangerous, as it was just collecting some flower tears. However, during the Ghost Festival, one's life could be in danger. As such, some people would participate, while others wouldn't. Those who didn't participate had to be careful and could only stay within the city's buildings. If they went out, they would be targeted by ghosts, so they had to buy items that could ward off evil. Seeing that he had some time, Zhao Fu decided to go and ask He Xianru before making preparations. He went to the Westfall restaurant, and after not seeing her for a long time, she was still as beautiful and mysterious as ever. He Xianru prepared a table full of food and wine, and the two of them sat down. At that moment, He Xianru stood up and poured a cup of wine for Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu told her about the situation. After thinking for a while, He Xianru replied, "That suppressive power is indeed quite difficult to get rid of, and it needs to be slowly dispelled or destroyed at its source." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite disappointed, and he asked another question, "What is the Phoenix Dragon Constitution?" Hearing this, He Xianru looked at Zhao Fu and mysteriously smiled, causing Zhao Fu to feel quite confused. Following this, He Xianru explained to Zhao Fu, since ancient times, dragons have represented emperors, and phoenixes have represented concubines. There are those who are destined to become emperors, and there are also those who are destined to become concubines. The Phoenix Dragon Constitution meant that she was destined to become a concubine, and it was an incredibly noble constitution. However, this constitution was quite special, as there was a trace of dragon chi within the phoenixes. If the dragon chi was powerful enough to suppress her, she would definitely be a great helper and would be of great help to you. However, if the dragon chi was too weak and couldn't suppress her, she could devour the dragon chi and become stronger, suppressing the true dragon or even replacing it. However, there was only one family in the world that had the Phoenix Dragon constitution, and that was the Wu family. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.